Rain hammered the black windows of the Brennan estate at 2 in the morning when Mafia kingpin Lucian Vale found a pregnant woman standing on a step stool in his hallway, trembling hands wiping dust from shelves she shouldn't have been touching. Her sleeve slipped. Bruises wrapped her wrist like finger marks. Then he saw the scar above her left eyebrow, the same one a fearless little girl earned 17 years ago when she jumped a fence to save him from bullies on Blackwater Row. That girl had vanished overnight. Now she stood in his house, hiding from someone, carrying a child, pretending not to know him. Her name was Celine Mercer, and the moment their eyes met, Lucian realized whoever hurt her was already dead. They just didn't know it yet. If you want to see how far a ghost from the past can pull a kingpin back into his humanity, stay until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. The rain didn't stop. It pounded the estate windows like something furious and alive, drumming against glass and stone while Lucian Vale stood motionless in the marble hallway at 2:17 in the morning, staring at a woman who shouldn't exist. She was small, too small for the oversized crimson cleaning uniform hanging off her shoulders like borrowed skin. Her dark hair was pulled back tight against her skull, and her movements on that step stool were careful, methodical, like someone who'd learned to make herself invisible through sheer discipline. But Lucien saw her. He always saw everything. His driver had dropped him off 5 minutes earlier after a meeting that ran 4 hours too long with people he didn't trust, negotiating terms he wouldn't honor. Exhaustion sat heavy in his chest. His suit jacket was still damp from the 30-second walk between the car and the front door. He'd expected silence, maybe a night guard near the kitchen. Nothing else. Instead, he got this. A stranger in his house. Except she wasn't a stranger. The woman reached upward to wipe a high shelf, and her sleeve slid down her forearm. That's when Lucian saw them. Dark purple bruises wrapped around her wrist in the unmistakable shape of fingers. Someone had grabbed her. Hard. Recently. His jaw tightened, then she turned slightly, adjusting her balance, and the hallway light caught her face. Lucien's breath stopped. A pale scar sat just above her left eyebrow. Thin. Faded. Old. He knew that scar. He knew it because 17 years ago, he'd watched it happen. Blackwater Row. Summer heat baking cracked asphalt. A group of older boys cornering him near the chain-link fence behind the abandoned grocery store, fists already clenched, voices already ugly. Then a scrawny girl with wild eyes and scraped knees came flying over that fence like a demon, screaming at them to back off, throwing rocks, swinging a broken 2x4 she'd grabbed from the trash pile. She'd landed wrong. Concrete split her forehead open. Blood everywhere. The boys scattered. Lucian had panicked, pressing his shirt against the wound while she laughed. Actually laughed through the pain, telling him to stop being such a baby about it. Her name had been Celine Mercer. She lived 3 blocks away in a house with peeling paint and a father who drank himself unconscious most nights. She walked Lucien home after school because the neighborhood was brutal, and he was small, and she was fearless in ways that made no sense. Then one morning, she was gone. No warning, no goodbye. Just gone. Her father's house sat empty for 2 weeks before someone new moved in. Lucien asked everyone. Nobody knew anything. It was like she'd been erased. Now she stood 15 feet away from him, pregnant, bruised, pretending to clean his house in the middle of the night. Lucian didn't move. He should have said something, asked her name, announced his presence, done anything except stand there like a ghost watching another ghost. But his mind was already working. Wrong uniform size. Overnight shift. No eye contact with security. Avoiding every camera angle. She was hiding. The woman climbed down carefully from the step stool, one hand bracing her lower back, the other steadying herself against the wall. She was maybe 6 months pregnant. Maybe more. Her movements were slow, pained, like every step cost her something. She turned toward the hallway closet. That's when she saw him. Her entire body froze. For 3 seconds, neither of them moved. Lucien watched her face shift through a dozen emotions at once. Shock, recognition, fear, calculation, and something else he couldn't name. Her hand moved instinctively toward her abdomen, protective, like she could shield the baby from whatever was about to happen. "Mr. Vale?" Her voice came out flat, professional, rehearsed. "I didn't realize you were home." She didn't use his first name. She didn't acknowledge him beyond formality. But her eyes told a different story. She knew exactly who he was. Lucien stepped forward slowly, deliberately, keeping his hands visible. You're working late. Overnight crew, she said quickly. I'm new. Started last week through the staffing agency. What's your name? A pause. Too long. Clara, she said. Clara Bennett. Liar. Lucien studied her face. 17 years had carved away the wildness she used to carry. The sharpness in her eyes had dulled into something harder, something survivalist. But the scar was still there, proof that time hadn't rewritten everything. You should take a break, Lucien said quietly. Sit down. I'm fine. You're pregnant and standing on step stools at 2 in the morning. Sit down. Celine, because that's who she was, no matter what name she gave, hesitated. Then exhaustion won. She lowered herself onto the velvet bench near the wall, moving like someone whose body had betrayed her too many times to trust it anymore. Lucien stayed standing. How long have you been in New York? He asked. A few months? Where'd you come from? Does it matter? It does if you're working in my house. Celine looked at him then, really looked at him. Her expression flickered with something close to grief before she buried it again. I needed work. The agency sent me here. That's all. That's not all. Her hands clenched in her lap. I don't know what you mean. Lucien crouched in front of her, bringing himself to eye level, close enough that she couldn't hide, far enough that she didn't feel cornered. You jumped a fence for me when we were kids, split your head open on the concrete. You used to walk me home because you didn't want me getting jumped by the older boys. You taught me how to throw a punch because I was too small to fight back on my own. Celine's breath hitched. I know who you are, Lucien said quietly, and I know you're running from something. For a moment he thought she might cry. Instead she laughed. It was a bitter, broken sound that didn't belong anywhere near her. You don't know anything, she whispered. Then tell me. Why? So you can fix it? Her voice cracked. You can't fix this, Lucien. Nobody can. The use of his first name hit harder than he expected. Try me. Celine shook her head slowly, staring at the floor. I shouldn't have come here. I didn't know this was your house. The agency just gave me the address. If I'd known... She stopped, swallowed hard. I'll leave. I'll tell them I'm sick. You'll never see me again. No. Lucien, you're not leaving. Her eyes snapped to his, sharp and desperate. You don't understand what you're doing. Then make me understand. Silence. Outside, the rain intensified, battering the windows like fists. Celine closed her eyes. When she opened them again, the fight had drained out of her. His name is Adrian Cross. He's the father. And if he finds me, he'll kill me. Lucien didn't react, didn't flinch, didn't let anything show on his face. Tell me everything, he said. And slowly, haltingly, she did. Adrian Cross had been charming at first, protective, the kind of man who showed up when Celine's car broke down, who paid for dinner without making it transactional, who listened when she talked about the things that scared her. Then she got pregnant. Everything changed. He started tracking her phone, checking her messages, asking where she'd been, who she'd talked to, why she'd taken 5 extra minutes at the grocery store. Small things at first, then bigger things. Then violence. The first time he hit her, he apologized for 3 days straight, bought her flowers, promised it would never happen again. It happened again, and again, and again. Celine tried to leave twice. The first time he found her at a motel in Delaware within 6 hours. The second time he broke her ribs. She stopped trying. Then one night, 5 months ago, Adrian passed out drunk on the couch. Celine took $600 she'd been hiding inside a tampon box, walked out the door, and drove west until the car ran out of gas in Ohio. She sold the car for cash, took 3 buses to Chicago, another 2 to New York, changed her name, dyed her hair, deleted every social media account, destroyed her phone and bought a burner with cash. She'd been invisible for 5 months. But Adrian was looking. He always looked. He'll find me, Celine whispered. He always does. Lucien stood slowly, his mind already moving through possibilities, resources, solutions. Not this time. You don't know him. I know men like him. Lucien, he's not... She stopped, looked up at him. He's not afraid of anything. Lucien's expression didn't change. He should be afraid of me. Celine stared at him for a long moment. Then she shook her head, exhausted. I can't drag you into this. You didn't drag me anywhere. I'm already here. Why? Her voice cracked again. Why would you do this? Lucian thought about a scrawny girl jumping a fence, thought about the way she used to stand between him and the world like a shield made of pure stubbornness. "Because 17 years ago you saved my life," he said quietly. "Now it's my turn." Bah. The next morning, Lucian made 3 calls. The first was to his head of security, Marcus Hale, a former Marine with a scar down his jaw, and the kind of calm that only came from seeing worse things than most people could imagine. "I need a background check," Lucien said. "Woman named Celine Mercer, born in Blackwater Row. Disappeared about 17 years ago. Find out where she went, what happened, and who's looking for her now." "How deep?" "All the way down." The second call was to his estate manager. "The overnight cleaning crew," Lucian said. "I want the woman working the late shift moved to day duties. Light work only. No lifting, no ladders. Tell the agency it's company policy. I don't care what excuse you use." "Yes, sir." The third call was to his lawyer. "I need someone who specializes in domestic violence cases, restraining orders, stalking charges, someone who doesn't lose." His lawyer didn't ask questions. "I'll send you 3 names by noon." Lucian hung up and stood at the window of his office, looking out over the estate grounds. The rain had finally stopped. Gray morning light filtered through the clouds, cold and indifferent. Somewhere out there, Adrian Cross was looking for Celine. Let him look. Lucian had built his empire by being smarter, faster, and more ruthless than everyone who tried to take it from him. He'd survived wars most people didn't know were happening. He'd turned Blackwater Row poverty into Manhattan power. And now some piece of shit predator thought he could hunt a woman under Lucian's roof? No, not anymore. Celine showed up for her shift that night and found herself reassigned. "Company policy," the estate manager said apologetically. "We can't have pregnant employees on overnight crews or doing heavy lifting. Liability issue. But we've got daytime positions open if you're interested." Celine looked like she wanted to argue. Then exhaustion won again. "What kind of work?" "Light housekeeping, laundry folding, inventory, nothing strenuous." "Same pay?" "Same pay." Celine nodded slowly. "Okay." She started the next day. Lucian watched her from a distance, never hovering, never intrusive, but always aware. He noticed the way she avoided the other staff, the way she kept her back to walls, the way her hand went to her phone every 15 minutes like she was checking for messages that terrified her. 2 days later, Marcus Hale walked into Lucian's office with a folder. "Found her," Marcus said, dropping the file onto the desk. Lucian opened it. The first page was a police report from Atlantic City, dated 11 months earlier. Domestic disturbance call. Officers responded to find Celine Mercer with a black eye and Adrian Cross claiming she'd fallen down the stairs. No charges filed. The second page was a restraining order application. Filed. Then withdrawn 3 days later. The third page was a hospital record. Bruised ribs, possible concussion, patient declined to press charges. The fourth page was worse. A previous girlfriend. Restraining order filed, then mysteriously dropped. Another woman before that. Same pattern. Another before that. Adrian Cross left a trail of terrorized women behind him everywhere he went, and the law had never touched him. "He's got an address in Baltimore," Marcus said. "Works construction. Moves around a lot. No permanent residence. Pays cash for everything." "Is he looking for her?" "Can't confirm yet. But he's got a history of tracking down women who leave him. Usually takes him 3 to 6 months. Lucian closed the folder. "I want eyes on him, 24 hours. I want to know when he sneezes." Done. "And Marcus?" "Yeah?" "If he comes anywhere near New York, I want to know immediately." Marcus nodded. "What are you planning?" "I'm planning to make sure he never touches her again." Celine didn't ask questions. She worked her shifts, kept her head down, and avoided Lucian whenever possible. But every night around 10, she walked past the estate library on her way to the staff quarters. And every night around 10, Lucian was there. It wasn't planned. At least, that's what he told himself. He just happened to be reading. Happened to look up when she passed. Happened to notice the exhaustion carved into her face. The fourth night, he spoke. "You look tired." Celine stopped in the doorway. Hesitated. "I'm fine." "You're not fine." "I'm pregnant and working 12-hour days. Of course I'm tired." "Then sit down for 5 minutes. I should get back." "Celine." The sound of her real name stopped her cold. She turned slowly, arms wrapped around herself like armor. "Don't call me that here." "Why not?" Because Clara Bennett doesn't have a past. Celine Mercer does. Lucien set his book aside. Your past isn't something you can just delete. Watch me. I did. For 17 years. That landed. Celine's expression cracked just slightly. She stepped into the library, closing the door behind her. I didn't want to disappear. My father... She stopped, swallowed. He got arrested. I went into foster care. They moved me upstate. I tried to find you. I asked people. Nobody knew where you were. I was still there, Lucien said quietly. For another 3 years. I'm sorry. Don't be. You survived. That's what mattered. Celine sat down slowly on the leather chair near the fireplace. The flames cast flickering shadows across her face, making her look younger and older all at once. Do you ever think about it? She asked. Blackwater Row? Every day. Why? Because it made me who I am. Celine looked at him then, really looked at him. And who are you, Lucien? Someone who doesn't let people hurt the people I care about. You don't even know me anymore. I know enough. Silence. The fire crackled. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows. He's going to find me, Celine whispered. No, Lucien said. He's not. You can't promise that. Yes, I can. Celine shook her head slowly. Tears welled in her eyes but didn't fall. You don't understand what he's like. He doesn't stop. He doesn't quit. He'll tear through everything until he gets what he wants. Then let him try. Lucien, I have resources he doesn't, connections he doesn't, money he doesn't, and I have something else. What? A reason. Celine stared at him. You saved my life once, Lucien said quietly. I'm returning the favor. That's all this is. But it wasn't, and they both knew it. The weeks passed. Celine settled into a rhythm at the estate. She worked her shifts, avoided conversations, and slowly, very slowly, started to relax. Lucien watched the change happen in increments. The way she stopped flinching when doors closed. The way she started eating in the staff dining room instead of alone in her quarters. The way she smiled, just once, when one of the gardeners told a terrible joke. Every night, she passed the library. And every night, Lucien was there. They didn't talk about Adrian. Didn't talk about the future. Didn't talk about anything that mattered. Instead, they talked about the past. The old corner store owner who gave them free candy when his wife wasn't looking. The broken fire hydrant that flooded the street every summer while kids ran through the water screaming. The abandoned lot where they used to catch fireflies in jars and make wishes that never came true. Celine laughed more now, real laughter, the kind that transformed her entire face. Lucien hadn't realized how much he'd missed that sound until he heard it again. One night, 3 weeks after she'd started working at the estate, Celine asked the question he'd been waiting for. Why did you stay? She asked. In Blackwater Row, after I left. You could have gotten out. I did get out, eventually. How? Lucien looked at the fire. I made a choice. I could either let that place destroy me, or I could destroy it first. And? I destroyed it. Celine studied his face. You're not the same kid I knew. Neither are you. No, she agreed quietly. I'm not. What happened to you? Lucien asked. After foster care? Celine was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was distant, detached. I aged out at 18. No family, no money, no plan. I worked 3 jobs just to keep a roof over my head. Met Adrian 2 years ago at a diner where I was waitressing. He seemed safe. Safe? Yeah, stable, responsible, the kind of guy who showed up when he said he would. She laughed bitterly. I was so stupid. You weren't stupid. You were desperate. Same thing? No, it's not. Celine looked at him. You really believe that? I know that. Another silence. Then Celine stood slowly, one hand bracing her lower back. I should go. It's late. Celine. She stopped at the door. You're safe here, Lucien said. I promise. For the first time since she'd arrived, Celine looked like she actually believed him. Balket. 4 days later, Marcus walked into Lucien's office with an expression Lucien had learned to recognize. Bad news. Adrian Cross left Baltimore 3 days ago, Marcus said. Quit his job, sold his truck, withdrew all his cash. Lucian's jaw tightened. Where is he now? We lost him in Philadelphia. But he's been showing Celine's picture around gas stations, diners, motels. He's looking. How close? Close enough. Lucian stood slowly. Double security on the estate. I want eyes on every entrance. Nobody gets in or out without clearance. Already done. And Celine? She doesn't know yet. Lucien nodded. I'll tell her. He found her in the garden that evening, sitting on a stone bench beneath the bare November trees, wrapped in a blanket against the cold. She looked peaceful. Lucien hated what he was about to do. Celine. She looked up, saw his expression, and the color drained from her face instantly. He's here, isn't he? Lucien sat beside her. He's in the area. We're not sure exactly where, but he's looking for you. Celine's hands went to her stomach, protective, instinctive. Her breathing quickened. I have to leave, right now. If he finds me here, he won't find you here. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Lucien, you don't understand. Her voice broke. He'll hurt people. He doesn't care. He'll hurt your staff. He'll hurt you. He'll burn this whole place down just to get to me. Lucien took her hand. It was shaking. Let him try, he said quietly, and I'll bury him. Celine stared at him, tears streaming down her face. Why are you doing this? Because you're not alone anymore. She collapsed forward, pressing her forehead against his shoulder, shaking with terror she'd been holding back for months. Lucy stayed perfectly still. He let her break, let her cry, let her pour out every ounce of fear she'd been carrying. And when she finally pulled back, exhausted and hollowed out, Lucien looked her directly in the eyes. He picked the wrong woman to hunt, he said, and he's about to learn that the hard way. The estate transformed overnight into something else entirely. Armed guards appeared at every gate, stone-faced men in dark suits who checked identification 3 times before allowing anyone through. Security cameras multiplied along the perimeter walls like watchful eyes. Motion sensors lit up the gardens after dark. The staff whispered nervously in the hallways, sensing the shift but not understanding it. Celine felt it most acutely. She woke before dawn in the small bedroom Lucien had arranged for her in the east wing, far from the staff quarters, closer to the main house, with a private bathroom and a lock that actually worked. The bed was too soft, the silence too complete. She lay there in the dark, one hand on her swollen belly, feeling the baby kick against her palm while her mind raced through every worst-case scenario she'd spent 5 months trying to outrun. Adrian was close. She could feel it the way animals sense storms coming. At 7, she forced herself out of bed, dressed in the oversized maternity clothes Lucien had quietly left outside her door 2 weeks earlier, and made her way downstairs. The morning shift staff were already moving through the kitchen, preparing breakfast for the household. Celine poured herself tea and stood near the window, watching frost melt off the grass in thin silver streaks. You're up early. She turned. Lucien stood in the doorway, already dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than she'd earned in 6 months of waitressing. But his tie was loose, his collar unbuttoned, and exhaustion carved shadows beneath his eyes. Couldn't sleep, Celine said. Me neither. They stood there in silence while the kitchen staff moved around them, pointedly ignoring the strange intimacy of a billionaire and a cleaning woman sharing tea at dawn. Any news? Celine asked quietly. Not yet. That's not comforting. It's not meant to be. Celine set her cup down harder than she intended. Tea sloshed over the rim. I should leave. Tonight. Right now. Before he gets any closer. We've had this conversation. And I'm having it again. Her voice rose slightly. Every second I stay here, I'm putting everyone in danger. Your staff, your guards, you. I can handle Adrian Cross. You don't know him like I do. Lucien stepped closer, lowering his voice. And you don't know me like you think you do. Something in his tone made her stop. She looked at him, really looked, and saw something cold and final in his expression. Something that reminded her he wasn't just the scrawny kid from Blackwater Row anymore. He was a man who built empires out of violence and will, who survived in a world that ate people alive. What are you going to do? She asked. Whatever it takes. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Before Celine could respond, Marcus Hale appeared in the doorway. His expression was neutral, professional, but Celine had learned to read the small tells, the slight tension in his jaw, the way his hand rested near his hip where she knew he carried a gun. We need to talk, Marcus said to Lucien. Lucien nodded, turned to Celine. Stay inside today. Don't go near the windows. Don't answer your phone. Lucien, please. The word was so quiet, so uncharacteristic, that it stopped her cold. She nodded. Lucien and Marcus left the kitchen together, their voices dropping to murmurs as they disappeared down the hallway. Celine stood alone by the window, watching her reflection in the glass, and wondered how long it would take before everything she'd tried to escape finally caught up with her. In Lucien's office, Marcus spread a series of photographs across the desk. Gas station security footage, a man filling up a beat-up sedan, average height, dark hair, stubbled jaw. Nothing remarkable except the predatory stillness in the way he moved. That's him, Marcus said. Taken yesterday morning at a truck stop in Newark. He's been asking questions, showing her picture around. Lucien studied the images. Adrian Cross looked exactly like what he was. A dangerous, ordinary man. The kind nobody noticed until it was too late. How many people has he talked to? At least a dozen. Clerks, waitresses, cleaning staff at motels. Marcus pulled out another photo. This is from a staffing agency 2 blocks from here. He walked in yesterday afternoon asking about employment records. Lucien's hands curled into fists. Did they tell him anything? No. Agency policy. But he's smart. He's triangulating. Checking every cleaning company, every temp service, every place that hires women in this area. How long before he finds this address? Days, maybe less. Lucien was quiet for a long moment, his mind working through possibilities, strategies, contingencies. What do we know about his patterns? He's methodical, patient. He doesn't rush, but when he finds his target, he moves fast. Previous incidents show he prefers isolated locations, parking lots, staircases, anywhere without witnesses. So he won't come here directly. Not unless he's desperate. Then we make him desperate. Marcus raised an eyebrow. How? Lucien turned toward the window, looking out over the estate grounds. He's hunting her because she ran, because she made him look weak. Men like Adrian don't care about the woman. They care about control. So? So we take that control away from him completely. I'm listening. Lucien turned back. I want a trail. A false lead. Something that sends him in the wrong direction long enough for me to put real pressure on him. What kind of pressure? Legal, financial, the kind that destroys him without me having to touch him. Marcus crossed his arms. You want to ruin him. I want to bury him. That takes time. Then we buy time. Marcus studied Lucien's face for a long moment. You care about her. It wasn't a question. Lucien didn't answer. Be careful, Marcus said quietly. Men like Adrian Cross don't stop. You push him, he pushes back harder. Good, Lucien said. Let him push. I want to see what happens when he realizes he's not the most dangerous man in the room anymore. That afternoon, Celine tried to work. Tried to fold laundry in the staff room like nothing had changed. Tried to pretend the walls weren't closing in. Tried to ignore the armed guards walking patrol routes outside the windows every 15 minutes. She lasted an hour. Then she walked to the library. Lucien was already there, sitting in the leather chair by the fireplace with a book he wasn't reading. He looked up when she entered. You're supposed to be resting. I'm supposed to be a lot of things. Celine sat down heavily across from him. None of them involve hiding in a bedroom while armed men walk circles around the house. They're here to protect you. I know, that's what scares me. Lucien set the book aside. Talk to me. About what? Whatever you're thinking right now. Celine laughed bitterly. You don't want to know what I'm thinking right now. Try me. She was quiet for a moment, staring at the fire. When she finally spoke, her voice was raw. I'm thinking about the first time Adrian hit me. We were arguing about something stupid. I don't even remember what. And he just snapped, backhanded me so hard I fell. Then he stood over me and said, You made me do that. Like it was my fault. Like I'd forced his hand. Lucien's expression darkened. I should have left right then, Celine continued. But I didn't. I told myself it was a mistake, that he was stressed, that it wouldn't happen again. She shook her head. It happened again the next week, and the week after that. And every time he made it sound like I deserved it. You didn't. I know that now. But back then, she touched her stomach gently. Back then, I thought maybe if I was quieter, smaller, more careful, he'd stop. But he never stopped. He just got worse. Lucien leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Why didn't you go to the police? I did. Twice. The first time they wrote up a report and told me to get a restraining order. I filed for one. Adrian found out and apologized so convincingly that I withdrew it. The second time, I had bruises on my ribs. The officer asked me if I wanted to press charges. I said yes. Then Adrian showed up at the station with flowers and tears, swearing he'd get help, begging me not to ruin his life. The officer looked at me like I was the problem. Jesus. So I stopped calling. Celine's voice cracked. I stopped asking for help because nobody believed me, or they believed me and didn't care. It was easier to just survive. Until you ran. Until I ran. Silence settled between them, heavy and thick. Then Lucien spoke, his voice low and deliberate. I need you to understand something. Adrian Cross is never going to touch you again. I don't care what it costs. I don't care what I have to do. He's done. Celine looked at him. You can't promise that. Watch me. Lucien, this isn't Blackwater Row. You can't just beat up the neighborhood bully and make it go away. You're right, this is worse, but I'm not a kid anymore either. What does that mean? Lucien held her gaze. It means I have resources now, connections, people who owe me favors, and I'm going to use every single one of them to make sure Adrian Cross spends the rest of his life regretting he ever laid a hand on you. Celine's breath caught. That sounds like a threat. It is. Against him or for me? Both. They stared at each other across the firelight. Then Celine did something she hadn't done in years. She trusted someone. Okay, she whispered. Okay? I'll stay. I'll let you help. But if this goes wrong, if anyone gets hurt because of me, I'm gone. You understand? Lucien nodded. I understand. But he had no intention of letting it go wrong. 2 days later, everything shifted. Marcus walked into Lucien's office at 6 in the morning holding a phone. We've got a problem. Lucien looked up from the financial reports he'd been reviewing since 4. What kind of problem? Adrian made contact. Every muscle in Lucien's body tensed. With who? One of the cleaning staff. A woman named Rosa Delgado. She works part-time at the estate and part-time at a hotel downtown. Adrian approached her last night in the parking lot, showed her Celine's picture, offered her $500 for information. Did she take it? No, she reported it immediately, but she's terrified. Says he followed her to her car, told her he just wanted to talk to his girlfriend, made it sound like a custody issue. Lucien stood slowly. Where is Rosa now? Upstairs, waiting. Bring her down. 5 minutes later, Rosa Delgado sat in Lucien's office, hands shaking around a cup of coffee she wasn't drinking. She was in her 50s, small and nervous, with kind eyes that had seen too much hardship to trust easily. Tell me exactly what he said, Lucien said gently. Rosa swallowed hard. He said he was looking for his girlfriend. Said she ran away while she was pregnant with his baby. Said he just wanted to make sure she was okay. Did he threaten you? Not directly, but the way he looked at me. She shivered. I've seen that look before. My ex-husband had the same eyes, like he was deciding whether or not to hurt me. What did you tell him? Nothing. I said I didn't know anyone by that name, but he didn't believe me. He followed me to my car, stood there watching me drive away. Lucien exchanged a look with Marcus. Did he give you his number? Marcus asked. Rosa nodded, pulling a crumpled business card from her pocket. It wasn't a real business card, just a piece of paper with a phone number scrawled in messy handwriting. Marcus took it carefully. Thank you. You did the right thing. Is Clara in trouble? Rosa asked quietly. Lucien's jaw tightened at the use of Celine's fake name. She's safe, but I need you to do something for me. Anything. If Adrian approaches you again, call this number immediately. Lucien handed her Marcus's card. Don't engage, don't answer questions, just call. Rosa nodded quickly. Will Clara be okay? Yes, Lucien said. I promise. After Rosa left, Marcus turned to Lucien. He's escalating. I know. We need to move faster. Agreed. Lucien reached for his phone. Get me everything you can on Adrian Cross. Bank records, employment history, past addresses, traffic violations, parking tickets, everything. I want to know every mistake he's ever made. What are you planning? I'm planning to give him exactly what he deserves. That night, Celine couldn't sleep. She paced her room for 2 hours, anxiety crawling under her skin like insects. Finally, she gave up and walked downstairs. The library was dark except for the dying fire. Lucien sat in his usual chair, staring into the embers. "Can't sleep either?" Celine asked from the doorway. He looked up. "No." She walked in slowly, sitting across from him. "Marcus told me what happened with Rosa." "I figured he would." "Adrian's getting closer." "I know. You should have told me." "I didn't want to scare you." "I'm already scared." Her voice broke. "I've been scared for months. At least if I know what's happening, I can prepare." "Prepare for what?" "For running again." "You're not running." "Lucien." "I said you're not running." His voice was hard, final. "I'm handling this." "How? By putting guards everywhere? By having your people follow me around like I'm some kind of prisoner?" "You're not a prisoner. You're protected." "It feels the same." Lucien stood, frustration bleeding through his carefully controlled exterior. "What do you want me to do, Celine? Let him find you? Let him hurt you? Let him take your baby?" "Of course not. Then trust me. I'm trying." They stood facing each other across the firelight, both breathing hard, both carrying too much weight to hold steady. Then Celine's face crumpled. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm sorry. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to let someone help me." Lucien's anger drained away instantly. He crossed the room and pulled her into his arms. She collapsed against him, shaking. "I've got you," he said quietly. "I'm not letting go." Celine pressed her face against his chest, feeling his heartbeat steady and strong beneath expensive fabric. For a moment, she let herself believe it. Let herself imagine a world where she didn't have to be afraid anymore. Then her phone buzzed. Once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. Celine pulled back, digging the burner phone from her pocket with trembling hands. 3 text messages from an unknown number. "I know you're in New York. I know you're hiding. I'm coming for you." The phone slipped from her hands and clattered to the floor. Lucien picked it up, read the messages, and his expression went completely cold. "Marcus?" he said into his own phone 10 seconds later. "Adrian just made contact. Trace this number. Now." He hung up and looked at Celine. "Pack a bag," he said quietly. "You're moving to the main house, guest wing, 3rd floor, private entrance. No one gets in without my approval." "Lucien, this isn't a negotiation." Celine nodded, too terrified to argue. 20 minutes later, she was standing in a guest suite that looked like something from a luxury hotel. King bed, marble bathroom, sitting area with a view of the gardens. Marcus was installing additional locks on the door, while 2 guards took position in the hallway outside. Lucien stood near the window, phone pressed to his ear, speaking in low, clipped tones to someone Celine couldn't identify. When he finally hung up, he turned to her. "The number's a burner, untraceable, but we know he's within a 20-mile radius based on cell tower pings." "So he's here?" "Yes." Celine sat down slowly on the bed, one hand over her mouth. "This is my fault. I should have kept running. I should have—" "Stop." Lucien crouched in front of her. "This is not your fault. None of this is your fault. Adrian made his choices. Now he has to live with the consequences." "What consequences? He's been doing this for years. He always gets away with it." "Not this time." "You keep saying that, but—" "Celine," Lucien took her hands. "Look at me." She did. "I am going to end this," he said. "One way or another. Do you believe me?" Celine searched his face, saw the absolute conviction there, the cold fury barely held in check. "Yes," she whispered. "Good. Now get some rest. You're safe here." But as Lucien left the room and locked the door behind him, Celine sat alone in the massive bed and wondered if anyone was ever truly safe from the ghosts that hunted them. But the next morning, Lucien's lawyer arrived at the estate carrying a briefcase full of ammunition. Her name was Victoria Chen, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s with a reputation for destroying abusers in court and a zero-tolerance policy for predators. She sat across from Lucien in his office, spreading documents across the desk with surgical precision. "I pulled everything I could find on Adrian Cross," Victoria said. 3 prior domestic violence complaints, 2 restraining orders filed and withdrawn, 1 hospital visit for a former girlfriend with a broken jaw, multiple harassment reports, and this." She slid a police report across the desk. 4 days ago, he assaulted a woman in the Bronx, mistook her for someone else. Witnesses everywhere. Cameras caught the whole thing. Lucien read the report carefully. "Has he been arrested?" "Not yet, But there's the warrant out. He's officially wanted. Good. There's more. Victoria pulled out another file. I contacted the DA's office. They're building a case against him for stalking and interstate harassment. If we can prove he crossed state lines to track Celine, that's federal. Can you prove it? With her testimony? Yes. Lucien was quiet for a moment. She's terrified. I know, but her testimony is the strongest weapon we have. What if she says no? Victoria's expression softened slightly. Then we find another way. But Lucien, women like Celine, women who've survived what she's survived, they're stronger than you think. Give her the choice. Let her decide if she wants to fight back. Lucien nodded slowly. I'll talk to her. Chats. He found Celine in the guest suite, staring out the window at the gardens below. We need to talk, Lucien said. She turned, saw his expression. What happened? I have someone I want you to meet. 10 minutes later, Victoria Chen sat across from Celine in the library, speaking in a calm, professional tone that somehow made everything feel less terrifying. I specialize in cases like yours, Victoria said. Domestic violence, stalking, harassment, and I'm very good at what I do. Celine's hands were clasped tightly in her lap. What do you want from me? Your story, your testimony, evidence that Adrian tracked you across state lines with intent to harm. And then what? And then we destroy him legally. Restraining order, criminal charges, federal prosecution if we can prove interstate stalking. We make sure he goes to prison and stays there. Celine shook her head slowly. You don't understand. I've tried this before. I filed reports. I got a restraining order. It didn't matter. He always found a way around it. That's because you were alone, Victoria said gently. You're not alone anymore. Celine looked at Lucien. He nodded. I can't promise this will be easy, Victoria continued. Court cases take time. You'll have to testify. You'll have to relive everything he did to you, but at the end, you'll be free. Actually free. Not just hiding, not just surviving. Free. Tears welled in Celine's eyes. What if it doesn't work? What if he gets out and comes after me again? Then we'll be ready, Lucien said quietly. Celine looked between them both, then down at her stomach where the baby was kicking. She thought about Rosa, terrified in a parking lot. She thought about all the other women Adrian had hurt. She thought about her daughter growing up afraid. Okay, she whispered. I'll do it. Victoria smiled. Good. We start tomorrow. Back. But tomorrow never came. That night, at 11:47 p.m., the estate's perimeter alarm went off. Marcus was on the phone with Lucien within seconds. Someone breached the south wall. Guards are responding now. Lucien was already moving, pulling on clothes, grabbing his phone. Where's Celine? Locked in the guest suite. 2 guards outside her door. Keep her there. Her. Lucien ran downstairs, meeting Marcus in the security office. Monitors showed guards converging on the south wall where motion sensors had triggered. Floodlights illuminated the grounds in harsh white light. There, Marcus pointed at one screen. A figure was climbing over the wall, clumsy and desperate. Adrian Cross. Lucien. Yen's blood went cold. Take him down, he said. Now. Guards swarmed the area within 90 seconds, surrounding Adrian before he made it 20 feet past the wall. He fought back, wildly, stupidly, throwing punches that connected with nothing while security tackled him to the ground. By the time Lucien reached the south lawn, Adrian was face down in the grass with 3 men holding him in place, screaming incoherently about his rights, his girlfriend, his baby. Lucien stood over him, looking down at the man who'd terrorized Celine for years. He looked pathetic, small, breakable. Get him off my property, Lucien said quietly, and call the police. Tell them we're holding a trespasser with an active warrant. Adrian twisted his head, trying to see Lucien's face. Where is she? Where's Celine? Lucien crouched down slowly, bringing himself eye level with the man on the ground. You came all this way, Lucien said softly. Crossed state lines, tracked her down, scared her, hurt her, and for what? She's mine! No, she's not. She never was. And now you're going to pay for every single thing you did to her. Adrian spat blood onto the grass. You think you're tough? You think you scare me? Lucien smiled. It was not a kind smile. I don't need to scare you, he said. The law's going to do that for me. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Adrian's face went pale as he realized what was happening. No, wait! I didn't do anything. She's lying. She's... Save it for your lawyer, Lucian said, standing. The police arrived 5 minutes later. Adrian Cross was arrested on the spot. Trespassing, violation of a restraining order that Victoria had filed emergency paperwork for earlier that day, and an outstanding warrant for assault. He screamed threats the entire way to the patrol car. Lucian watched the taillights disappear down the driveway. Then he turned and walked back toward the house. Marcus fell into step beside him. That was easier than expected. He's desperate. Desperate men make mistakes. What happens now? Now Victoria tears him apart in court, and I make sure he never gets out. Marcus was quiet for a moment. You're in deep with her. With who? Celine. Lucian didn't answer, because he knew it was true, and there was no going back now. Upstairs, Celine sat on the bed in the guest suite, listening to the sirens fade into silence. A guard had told her what happened. Adrian was arrested. Adrian was gone. She should have felt relief. Instead, she felt... Celine sat on the bed in the guest suite, listening to the sirens fade into silence. She should have felt relief. Instead, she felt nothing. Just a hollow emptiness where terror used to live, like someone had scooped out her insides and left behind only the shell of a person who used to know how to feel things. Her hands rested on her stomach, feeling the baby kick. 7 months now. Maybe 8. Time had blurred since she started running. The pregnancy felt less like creating life and more like carrying evidence, proof of every mistake she'd made, every choice that led her to Adrian Cross. A soft knock at the door. Celine? Lucian's voice, quiet and careful. She didn't answer. The lock turned. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. He looked exhausted, tie gone, shirt wrinkled, hair pushed back from his face like he'd been running his hands through it for hours. He's gone, Lucian said. Police took him. He's being processed downtown. Victoria's already filing additional charges. Celine nodded slowly. Did you hear me? Lucian asked. It's over. No, it's not. Celine, you don't get it. Her voice came out flat, dead. Men like Adrian don't stop. They don't quit. He'll get a lawyer. He'll post bail. He'll be out in 48 hours and he'll come back. He always comes back. Lucian crossed the room, sitting beside her on the bed. Not this time. Victoria's pushing for no bail. And even if he gets out, he'll be under electronic monitoring. Restraining orders already active. He comes within 500 feet of you, he goes straight back to prison. You're talking about paperwork, legal documents. Adrian doesn't care about any of that. He cares about control. And right now, I took that away from him. Celine turned to look at Lucian. He'll find a way. He always does. Then we'll be ready. Will we? Celine's voice cracked. Will we really? Because I've been ready before. I had restraining orders before. I had police reports and hospital records and witness statements. And it didn't matter, nothing mattered. He still found ways to hurt me. Lucienne took her hand. It was cold, trembling. I'm not the police. I'm not some overworked public defender who doesn't care. I'm someone with actual resources, money, connections, people who will do what I tell them to do. And what are you telling them to do? Whatever it takes to keep you safe. Celine pulled her hand away. That's what scares me. Silence settled between them, thick and uncomfortable. Outside, the estate grounds were returning to normal, floodlights dimming, guards resuming patrol routes. The machinery of Lucien's world clicking back into place like nothing had happened. But something had happened. Adrian had made it onto the property. He'd climbed the wall, evaded sensors long enough to get 20 feet past the perimeter. If the guards had been 30 seconds slower, if he'd chosen a different entry point, if luck had fallen differently... Celine couldn't finish the thought. I need to sleep, she said quietly. Lucian stood. I'll be downstairs if you need anything. Lucienne? He turned back. Thank you, Celine said, for everything. I mean it. He nodded once, then left, pulling the door closed behind him with a soft click. Celine lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling, and tried to convince herself that maybe, just maybe, the nightmare was actually ending. She almost believed it. At 6 a.m., Victoria Chen called Lucian with news. Adrian Cross posted bail 2 hours ago. Lucian, who hadn't slept, stood near the window of his office watching dawn bleed across the horizon. How is that possible? You said you were filing for no bail. I did. Judge denied it. Said Adrian has no prior felony convictions and no history of fleeing jurisdiction. Set bail at $50,000. Who posted it? His brother. Lives in Pennsylvania. Wired the money directly to the bondsman. Lucian's jaw tightened. Where's Adrian now? Unknown. He was released at 4:30 this morning. Electronic monitors active. Court ordered to stay in New York City limits and away from Celine. But beyond that, we can't track him. What about the assault warrant from the Bronx? Still active, but that's a separate jurisdiction. They're processing it now. Could take days. We don't have days. I know. Victoria's voice was tight with frustration. I'm doing everything I can, Lucien, but the system moves slowly. And Adrian has rights, whether we like it or not. Rights. Lucien said the word like it tasted bitter. He terrorized her for years, tracked her across 3 states, broke into my property, and he has rights. Yes, that's how it works. Then the system's broken. Welcome to domestic violence law, Victoria said quietly. It's designed to protect everyone, which means sometimes it protects the wrong people. Lucien hung up and stood there for a long moment, thinking. Adrian was out. Electronic monitor or not, restraining order or not, the predator was loose again. And Lucien knew, deep in his bones knew, that this wasn't over. He didn't tell Celine immediately. Instead, he spent the morning fortifying, doubling guard rotations, installing additional cameras, coordinating with Marcus to create lockdown protocols if Adrian violated the restraining order. At noon, he finally went upstairs. Celine was sitting in the library, staring at a book she wasn't reading. We need to talk, Lucien said. She looked up, saw his expression. He's out, isn't he? Yes. The book slipped from her hands and hit the floor with a dull thud. He posted bail this morning, Lucien continued. Electronic monitor, restraining order active. He's legally required to stay away from you. Legally required, Celine laughed, a broken sound. That's hilarious. Celine, Muko. No, don't. Don't tell me it's going to be okay. Don't tell me the system works. Don't tell me I'm safe. She stood abruptly, pacing. He's out, which means he's planning, thinking, figuring out how to get to me without getting caught. He won't get to you. You don't know that? Yes, I do. They stood facing each other, both breathing hard. I can't do this anymore, Celine whispered. I can't keep living like this, waiting for him to show up, waiting for something terrible to happen. I'd rather run than live in fear. You're not running. Then what am I doing? Hiding behind your guards? Hiding behind your lawyers? Hiding behind you? Her voice broke. I'm so tired, Lucien. I'm so tired of being afraid. Lucien crossed the room and pulled her into his arms. She fought for a second, then collapsed against him, shaking. I've got you, he said quietly. I'm not letting go. You keep saying that. Because it's true. Celine pressed her forehead against his chest, feeling his heartbeat steady and strong. For a moment, she let herself believe it. Let herself imagine a world where she didn't have to carry everything alone. Then her phone buzzed. Once, twice. She pulled it from her pocket with trembling hands. 2 text messages from an unknown number. Did you really think a restraining order would stop me? I'm closer than you think. The phone slipped from her fingers. Lucien caught it, read the messages, and his expression went completely cold. Marcus, he said into his own phone 10 seconds later. Adrian just violated the restraining order. Contact NYPD. I want him picked up immediately. He hung up and looked at Celine. Pack a bag, he said. You're not staying here anymore. Where are we going? Somewhere he'll never find you. Muck. 30 minutes later, Celine was in the back of Lucien's car, speeding through Manhattan streets toward an address she didn't recognize. Marcus drove. Lucien sat beside Celine in the back, phone pressed to his ear, coordinating with Victoria, with police, with people whose names Celine didn't know. They pulled into an underground parking garage beneath a luxury high-rise in Tribeca. This is a safe house, Lucien said as they rode the elevator to the 23rd floor. Registered under a shell company, no public records connecting it to me or the estate. Adrian won't find it. The apartment was beautiful, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Hudson River, modern furniture, a kitchen that looked like something from a magazine, but Celine barely saw any of it. She walked to the window and stared out at the gray water below, feeling like she was watching her life from a distance, disconnected and strange. Celine. She turned. Lucien stood near the door, keys in hand. I need to go back to the estate, handle some things, but Marcus is staying with you. 2 guards outside the door. You're safe here. For how long? As long as it takes. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Celine nodded slowly. Lucien hesitated, like he wanted to say something else. Then he turned and left. The door locked behind him with a heavy click. Celine stood alone in the beautiful apartment and felt like a prisoner in a gilded cage. Tick. 2 days passed. Celine barely left the bedroom. She ate when Marcus brought food, showered when exhaustion overwhelmed her, stared at the river and tried not to think about Adrian out there somewhere, planning, waiting. The baby kicked constantly now, like she could feel her mother's anxiety. On the third day, Victoria arrived with news. Police picked up Adrian this morning, she said, sitting across from Celine in the apartment's living room. He violated the restraining order by sending those texts. He's back in custody. Judge revoked bail. Celine looked up. For how long? Until trial, which could take months. Months. Yes. Celine was quiet for a long moment. What happens at trial? You testify. You tell the judge everything Adrian did to you. We present evidence, police reports, hospital records, witness statements, and we ask for the maximum sentence. Which is what? 5 to 7 years, maybe more if we can prove interstate stalking. 5 to 7 years. It sounded like forever. It sounded like nothing. What if he gets out early? Celine asked. What if he takes a plea deal? What if... Then we'll deal with it, Victoria said firmly. But right now, focus on this. Adrian Cross is in jail. He can't hurt you. He can't contact you. He can't come near you. You're safe. Celine wanted to believe her, but safety felt like a concept she'd forgotten how to understand. That night, Lucien came to the safe house. It was late, past midnight. Celine was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, when she heard the front door open. She got up slowly, one hand on her lower back, and walked into the living room. Lucien stood near the window, still wearing his suit, looking exhausted. What are you doing here? Celine asked. Couldn't sleep. So you drove across the city in the middle of the night? Apparently. They stood there in the darkness, lit only by the city lights filtering through the windows. Victoria told me Adrian's in jail, Celine said quietly. He is. For now. For now, Lucien agreed. Celine walked closer. What happens when he gets out? He won't. You don't know that. Yes, I do. How? Lucien looked at her then, and something in his expression made her stop breathing. Because I'm going to make sure he never sees daylight again. The words hung in the air between them, heavy and final. What does that mean? Celine asked carefully. It means I have people working on building a case so airtight that no judge, no jury, no lawyer can tear it apart. It means I'm using every connection I have to make sure Adrian Cross gets exactly what he deserves. That sounds like revenge. It's justice. Is there a difference? Lucien was quiet for a moment. Not anymore. Celine searched his face, saw the cold fury there, the absolute conviction, and she realized something terrifying. Lucien wasn't just helping her. He was going to war. I don't want you to destroy yourself for me, she said quietly. I'm not. You are. I can see it. You're turning into something you're not because of me. I'm turning into exactly who I've always been, Lucien said. You just never saw this side. What side? The side that doesn't lose. Celine took a shaky breath. I don't want to be the reason you become someone you hate. Lucien crossed the room, standing close enough that she could feel the heat coming off him. You're not the reason, he said quietly. Adrian is, and he's going to pay for every single thing he did to you. Before Celine could respond, Lucien's phone buzzed. He pulled it out, read the message, and his expression shifted. What? Celine asked. Victoria just sent me something. He pulled up an email and turned the phone so Celine could see. It was a police report, dated 3 days earlier. A woman named Rachel Donovan had filed assault charges against Adrian Cross. The incident happened 4 months ago in Baltimore. She'd been too afraid to come forward until she heard about his arrest in New York. There's more, Lucien said, scrolling. Victoria put out inquiries through domestic violence networks. 3 more women have come forward, all with similar stories, all terrified, all willing to testify. Celine stared at the screen, feeling something cold settle in her chest. He did this to other people, she whispered. Yes. For years. Yes. And nobody stopped him. Lucien's jaw tightened. Nobody tried hard enough. Celine looked up at him. What are you going to do? I'm going to make sure every single one of those women gets justice. And I'm going to make sure Adrian Cross never hurts anyone ever again. How? By using every dirty trick, Every legal loophole, every favor I'm owed to bury him so deep he never sees light again. Celine should have been horrified. Instead, she felt something close to relief, because for the first time in years, someone was actually fighting for her. The next morning, everything changed. Victoria called Lucien at 7 a.m. "We have a problem." Lucien, who was already awake, sat up straighter. "What kind of problem?" "Adrian's lawyer filed a motion to dismiss all charges. Claims Celine has been coached by you. Says her testimony is unreliable because she's financially dependent on you. Says the entire case is fabricated." "That's insane." "It's also effective. Judge ordered a preliminary hearing to evaluate the evidence. If we can't prove Celine's testimony is credible and independent, the case gets thrown out." Lucien's blood went cold. "When's the hearing?" 5 days. "Can we win?" Victoria was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know. Celine's relationship with you complicates things. The fact that she's living in your safe house, that you're paying for her legal representation, it looks like you're controlling the narrative." "I'm protecting her." "I know that, you know that, but a defense attorney can make it look like something else." "So what do? We prepare Celine to testify, and we pray the judge sees through the manipulation." Lucien hung up and stared at the wall. Adrian's lawyer was smart. He'd found the weakness in their case and was driving a knife straight through it. If they couldn't prove Celine's independence, if the judge believed she was being coached or controlled, Adrian walked free, and everything they'd built would collapse. Lucien drove back to the safe house and told Celine everything. She listened in silence, her face growing paler with every word. "So if I testify," she said slowly, "Adrian's lawyer is going to say I'm lying, that you told me what to say." "Yes." "And if I don't testify, the case gets dismissed." "Yes." "So either way, we lose." "We're not losing." "Lucien." "We're not losing," he repeated firmly. "Victoria's preparing you. We're going to make sure your testimony is so detailed, so specific, so clearly your own words that no lawyer can twist it." Celine shook her head. "You don't get it. It doesn't matter how well I testify. Adrian's lawyer is going to point at you sitting in that courtroom and say, 'I'm doing this because you're making me.' And part of me wonders if he's right." "What?" "I'm living in your apartment, eating your food, hiding behind your guards. You're paying for my lawyer. You're orchestrating everything." Her voice cracked. "How is that different from what Adrian did? How is this not just another man controlling my life?" The words hit Lucien like a physical blow. "That's not what this is," he said quietly. "Isn't it?" "No. Adrian controlled you through fear, through violence, through making you believe you were worthless without him. I'm giving you choices, resources, the ability to fight back. But they're your choices, your resources, your fight. Because you asked me to help." "Did I? Or did you just decide to help because it made you feel powerful?" Silence crashed between them. Celine looked away, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry. That wasn't fair." "Maybe it was." "No. You've been nothing but good to me. And I'm sitting here questioning your motives because I'm so messed up, I don't know how to tell the difference between someone helping me and someone controlling me anymore." Lucien sat beside her, careful not to touch her. "I'm not trying to control you, Celine. I'm trying to keep you alive." "I know." "Then trust me. I'm trying. But every time I start to feel safe, something reminds me that I'm not, that I'll never be, that Adrian's always going to be out there waiting. Not if we win this hearing. And if we don't?" Lucien didn't answer, because he didn't have one. The next 3 days were brutal. Victoria arrived every morning to prep Celine for testimony. They went over every detail, every incident, every bruise, every threat, every moment of terror. Celine relived it all. The first time Adrian hit her, the time he broke her ribs, the time he locked her in the bathroom for 6 hours, the time he threw her phone against the wall and screamed that nobody would ever believe her. She told Victoria everything. And every night she collapsed into bed feeling like she'd been torn apart and poorly reassembled. On the 4th day, Victoria sat across from her in the safe house living room with a grim expression. "I need to tell you something," Victoria said. Celine looked up, exhausted. "What?" Adrian's lawyer subpoenaed Lucien's financial records, bank transfers, property records, everything. "Why?" "To prove you're financially dependent on him, to show that he's been supporting you, housing you, controlling your access to resources." "But he has been supporting me. I don't have anything. No job. No money. No place to live. I know. Which is exactly what Adrian's lawyer is going to use against you. Celine felt something break inside her. So we're screwed. Not necessarily. If you can prove that Lucian's support didn't influence your testimony, that everything you're saying is true regardless of who's helping you, we might still win. How do I prove that? By being completely honest. By showing the judge that your story doesn't change whether Lucian's in the room or not. By making it clear that you're not speaking for him, you're speaking for yourself. Celine nodded slowly, but doubt gnawed at her, because the truth was, she didn't know anymore where her own voice ended and Lucian's influence began. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for 9 a.m. on a cold Thursday morning in November. Celine dressed carefully in clothes Victoria had brought, simple, professional, nothing that screamed wealth or privilege. Lucien drove her to the courthouse in silence. They walked through security together. Reporters waited outside, shouting questions Celine didn't answer. Inside, the courtroom was smaller than she expected. Sterile. Fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like trapped insects. Adrian sat at the defense table with his lawyer, a sharp-eyed man in an expensive suit who looked at Celine like she was prey. Their eyes met across the room. Adrian smiled. It was the same smile he used to give her right before he hurt her. Celine's hands started shaking. Lucien sat behind her in the gallery, close enough that she could feel his presence, but far enough that it couldn't look like he was controlling her. The judge entered, an older woman with gray hair and an expression that gave away nothing. "We're here for a preliminary hearing in the matter of the People versus Adrian Cross," the judge said. "Mr. Reeves, you filed a motion to dismiss based on witness credibility concerns. Proceed." Adrian's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, the prosecution's case rests almost entirely on the testimony of Ms. Celine Mercer. However, Ms. Mercer is currently living in a property owned by Mr. Lucian Vale, who is also funding her legal representation and providing her with financial support. We contend that Ms. Mercer's testimony has been unduly influenced by Mr. Vale and therefore cannot be considered reliable." Victoria stood. "Your Honor, Ms. Mercer is a domestic violence survivor with no financial resources of her own. Mr. Vale's support does not invalidate her testimony. It simply provides her with the safety and resources necessary to come forward. Her account of Mr. Cross's abuse is corroborated by hospital records, police reports, and testimony from multiple other victims." The judge looked at Celine. "Miss Mercer, I'd like to hear from you directly." Celine stood slowly, her legs shaking. "Tell me in your own words," the judge said. "Why are you bringing these charges against Mr. Cross?" Celine took a breath. "Because he hurt me," she said quietly. "For 2 years he hurt me. He hit me. He threatened me. He tracked me when I tried to leave. And I'm done being afraid of him." "And Mr. Vale's involvement?" the judge asked. "How has that affected your decision to testify?" "It hasn't. Lucien gave me a safe place to stay. He connected me with a lawyer who actually listens, but he didn't tell me what to say. He didn't coach me. Everything I'm telling you is the truth, my truth. Not his." The judge studied her for a long moment. Then she turned to Adrian's lawyer. "Do you have evidence that Ms. Mercer's testimony has been fabricated or coached?" "We have evidence of financial dependence, Your Honor." "That's not what I asked." Adrian's lawyer hesitated. "No, Your Honor, but—" "Then your motion is denied. This case will proceed to trial." Celine's knees nearly gave out. She sat down hard, barely breathing. Victoria squeezed her shoulder. Behind her, Lucien exhaled slowly. They'd won. For now. Look out. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Lucien's security pushed them back while Celine climbed into the car, shaking so badly she could barely function. "You did it," Lucien said quietly. "I didn't do anything. The judge just didn't believe his lawyer." "You told the truth. That's everything." Celine looked at him. "What happens now?" "Now we prepare for trial. And we make sure Adrian Cross never walks free again. And if we lose, we won't. But if we do," Lucien's expression hardened, "then I'll handle it." "What does that mean?" "It means I'll make sure he never touches you again. One way or another." Celine stared at him, seeing something dark and final in his eyes. "Lucien, don't ask me questions you don't want answered." The car pulled away from the courthouse, carrying them back toward the safe house. And Celine realized with cold clarity that she'd traded one dangerous man for another. The difference was, Lucien's danger was pointed outward, toward anyone who tried to hurt her, and she wasn't sure anymore if that was protection or obsession. That night, alone in the safe house, Celine's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Then she did. Hello? Silence. Then breathing. I know you think you won today, Adrian's voice said quietly. Celine's blood turned to ice. But you didn't. You just made everything worse. How are you calling me? Celine whispered. You're in jail. I have friends. I have resources. And I have time. His voice was calm, almost pleasant. Time to think. Time to plan. Time to figure out exactly how I'm going to make you pay for this. The restraining order doesn't mean anything. You know that. You've always known that. Celine's hands shook so badly she almost dropped the phone. When I get out, and I will get out, I'm going to find you, Adrian continued. And your billionaire boyfriend won't be able to stop me. Nobody will. Because I know you, Celine. I know how you think. I know what scares you. And I'm going to use every single bit of that knowledge to destroy you. The line went dead. Celine sat frozen, staring at the phone. Then she ran to the bathroom and vomited until there was nothing left inside her. When she finally emerged, Marcus was standing in the hallway. I heard, he said quietly. Traced the call. It came from inside the jail. Someone smuggled Adrian a phone. He's never going to stop, Celine whispered. We'll find out who gave him the phone. We'll shut it down. It doesn't matter. He'll find another way. He always does. Marcus looked at her for a long moment. I need to call Lucien. No. Celine. No, don't tell him. Not tonight. Let him have one night where he thinks we won. Marcus hesitated, then nodded. Celine walked back into the bedroom, closed the door, and sank to the floor. The baby kicked, hard, like she was trying to remind her mother that they were still alive, still fighting, still here. And Celine realized with devastating clarity that being alive wasn't the same as being free. She could run, she could hide, she could testify, and win, and send Adrian to prison. But he would always be there, in her nightmares, in her fear, in every shadow that moved wrong. And the only way to truly escape him was to become someone he couldn't recognize anymore. Someone harder, colder. Someone who didn't flinch. Celine pressed both hands against her stomach and made a promise to the daughter she hadn't met yet. Whatever it took. Whatever she had to become. Her child would never know this fear. Never know this helplessness. Never know what it felt like to be hunted. Even if it meant Celine had to destroy herself to make it happen. Celine didn't sleep that night. She sat on the floor of the safe house bedroom with her back against the wall, phone clutched in one hand, feeling the baby kick against her ribs, while Adrian's voice played on repeat in her mind. When I get out, and I will get out, I'm going to find you. The words weren't a threat. They were a promise. And Celine had learned the difference years ago. At 5 a.m., she stood slowly, her body aching from hours on the floor, and walked to the bathroom. Her reflection in the mirror looked like a stranger. Pale skin, dark circles carved beneath her eyes, hair tangled around a face that had aged a decade in 6 months. She barely recognized herself. Maybe that was good. Maybe the person staring back at her was someone Adrian Cross had never met. Someone harder. Someone who wouldn't break. Someone willing to do what needed to be done. Celine splashed cold water on her face, changed clothes, and walked into the living room where Marcus sat at the kitchen counter drinking coffee and monitoring security feeds on his laptop. You're up early, he said without looking away from the screen. Couldn't sleep. Because of the call? Celine nodded. Marcus finally looked at her. I have to tell Lucien. I know. He's not going to handle it well. I know that too. Marcus picked up his phone, hesitated, then dialed. Lucien answered on his first ring. What happened? Adrian called Celine last night, from inside the jail. Someone smuggled him a phone. Silence on the other end. Then Lucien's voice, cold and lethal. I'm on my way. He arrived 20 minutes later, still wearing yesterday's clothes, looking like he'd driven across the city at 100 miles an hour. Celine was sitting on the couch when he walked in. Their eyes met. Tell me everything, Lucien said. So she did. Every word Adrian said, every threat, every promise. When she finished, Lucien's expression was absolutely empty. Not angry, not shocked, just blank, like someone had turned off every emotion he possessed and replaced them with pure calculation. Marcus, he said quietly, find out who gave Adrian that phone. I don't care how you do it. Find them. Already working on it. Lucian turned to Celine. Are you okay? No. Good. She looked up, startled. What? Fear keeps you sharp, keeps you careful. You should be afraid right now. That's not comforting. It's not meant to be. Lucian sat beside her, close but not touching. Adrian's escalating, which means he's getting desperate, which means he's going to make mistakes. Or he's going to do something terrible. Maybe, but we're going to be ready. Celine shook her head. You keep saying that, but how can we be ready for someone who has nothing to lose? Lucien was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was low and deliberate. We take away the one thing he has left. Which is what? Hope. By noon, Marcus had answers. A corrections officer named Dennis Rourke had been caught on internal security footage slipping something to Adrian during a cell inspection. When questioned, Rourke claimed it was a pack of cigarettes. It wasn't. Marcus showed Lucien the footage in the safe house kitchen while Celine rested in the bedroom. Rourke's got gambling debts, Marcus said. Someone paid him $5,000 to get the phone to Adrian. Who paid him? Still tracking that. But my guess? Adrian's brother, same one who posted bail. Lucian's jaw tightened. What's happening to Rourke? Suspended pending investigation, but he'll probably just get fired. Maybe a misdemeanor charge. Not good enough. I know, but that's the system. Lucian stared at the screen, watching the footage loop. Rourke handing Adrian something small, Adrian palming it smoothly, the whole transaction taking less than 3 seconds. I want everything on Rourke, Lucian said quietly. Bank records, phone records, everyone he's talked to in the last 6 months. If he took money to help Adrian once, he'll do it again. And if he does, then we make sure he regrets it. Marcus nodded and left the room. Lucien stood alone in the kitchen, staring out the window at the gray November sky, and felt something dark and final settle in his chest. Adrian Cross wasn't going to stop. The law wasn't going to stop him. The courts weren't going to stop him, so Lucien would have to, one way or another. That afternoon, Victoria called with more bad news. Trial's been moved up, she said. Judge wants to expedite because of the media attention. We go to court in 2 weeks. Lucien, sitting in the safe house living room with Celine beside him, put the call on speaker. 2 weeks? You said we had months. I did. Judge changed her mind. Says keeping Adrian in pretrial detention too long without a speedy trial violates his rights. What about Celine's rights? Lucien's voice was sharp. I'm fighting for those, but the law protects everyone, even the people we wish it didn't. Celine leaned forward, hands clasped tightly. Can we be ready in 2 weeks? We'll have to be, Victoria said. I've already contacted the other victims. 3 of them are willing to testify. That strengthens our case significantly. And Adrian's lawyer? We'll try to discredit every single one of them, paint you all as vindictive exes working together to destroy an innocent man. But we're not... I know, but that's the narrative he'll push, which means your testimony has to be flawless. No contradictions, no hesitation, nothing he can twist. After the call ended, Celine sat in silence, staring at her hands. 2 weeks, she said quietly. We'll be ready. Will we? I can barely think straight. Every time I close my eyes, I see him. Every time my phone buzzes, I think it's another threat. How am I supposed to walk into a courtroom and testify when I can barely function? Lucien took her hand. Because you're stronger than you think you are. I'm not. I'm falling apart. No, you're surviving. There's a difference. Celine pulled her hand away, frustration bleeding through exhaustion. Stop doing that. Doing what? Telling me I'm strong when I feel weak. Telling me I'm surviving when I feel like I'm dying. I need you to be honest with me, Lucien. Not comforting. Honest. You want honesty? Yes. Fine. You're terrified. You're exhausted. You're barely holding yourself together. And in 2 weeks, you're going to walk into a courtroom and relive the worst moments of your life in front of strangers while Adrian sits 10 feet away staring at you. Lucien's voice was hard, unflinching. It's going to be brutal. It's going to hurt. And there's a good chance you'll break down on the stand. Celine's eyes filled with tears. But you're going to do it anyway, Lucien continued, because the alternative is letting him win, and you've come too far to let that happen now. What if I can't? Then I'll carry you through it. You can't do that. Watch me. They sat in silence while the afternoon light faded outside the windows. Finally, Celine spoke, her voice barely a whisper. I'm scared. I know. Not just of Adrian, of what happens after. If we win, he goes to prison. If we lose, he walks free. Either way, my life is defined by him, by what he did to me. I hate that. I hate that he gets to be the center of my story. Lucien looked at her. Then make this the chapter where you take your story back. Reconnects. The next week was hell. Victoria arrived every day to prep Celine for testimony. They went over every detail, every incident, every moment of abuse until Celine felt like her entire existence had been reduced to a catalog of pain. The first time Adrian hit you, what were you wearing? Where did it happen? What did he say before? What did he say after? The time he broke your ribs, which hospital did you go to? What did you tell the doctor? Did you file a report? The time he locked you in the bathroom. How long were you in there? Did you scream? Did anyone hear you? On and on, question after question, until Celine's voice went hoarse and her memories blurred together into one long nightmare. Victoria was relentless, professional, kind in the way lawyers were kind, efficient, detached, focused on the goal. But it was Lucien who sat with Celine afterward, when Victoria left and the apartment fell silent. He didn't ask questions, didn't offer platitudes, just sat beside her while she cried or stared at the wall or paced the apartment like a caged animal. One night, 8 days before the trial, Celine broke completely. She was in the bedroom when it happened. Victoria had just left after a particularly brutal session where they'd gone over the night Adrian had thrown her down the stairs. Celine had relived every second. The argument, the push, the fall, the pain exploding through her back, the fear that she'd lost the baby. When it was over, Victoria had patted her hand and said, "Good, that's exactly the level of detail we need." Then she left. And Celine sat alone on the bed and felt something inside her snap. She started screaming, not words, just sound. Raw, animal sound that tore out of her throat and filled the apartment. Marcus was at the door instantly, weapon drawn, checking for threats. Lucien was right behind him. "Out!" Lucien told Marcus. Marcus hesitated, then left, closing the door. Lucien sat on the floor beside the bed where Celine had collapsed, still screaming, hands fisted in the blankets. He didn't try to stop her, didn't try to calm her down, just sat there and let her break. When the screaming finally stopped, when her voice gave out and her throat felt like shredded glass, Celine looked at him. "I can't do this," she whispered. "Yes, you can." "No, I can't. I thought I could. I thought I was strong enough, but I'm not. I can't walk into that courtroom. I can't look at him. I can't." Her voice broke. "I can't keep doing this." Lucien moved closer, careful, deliberate. "What do you want me to do?" "I don't know. Tell me. Whatever it is, I'll do it." Celine looked at him with red, swollen eyes. "Make it stop. Make all of this just stop." "I can't." "Why not?" "Because the only way it stops is if you see it through, if you testify, if you fight." "I'm tired of fighting." "I know." "So why won't you let me quit?" Lucien's expression was hard, unyielding. "Because quitting means he wins, and I'm not letting him win. This isn't about you. You're right. It's about you and your daughter, and every other woman Adrian Cross has hurt or will hurt if we don't stop him." Lucien's voice dropped lower, colder. "You want to quit? Fine. Walk away. I'll drive you to the airport myself. Give you enough money to disappear somewhere he'll never find you. But you and I both know that's not freedom. That's just another prison." Celine stared at him. "The only way you're ever truly free," Lucien said quietly, "is if you stand up in that courtroom and tell the truth. All of it. Everything he did. Everything he took from you. And then you watch him pay for it." Tears streamed down Celine's face. "What if I can't? Then I'll be right there. And when you start to fall, I'll catch you. Promise?" "Promise." Celine took a shaky breath. Then another. Then she nodded. "Okay. Okay? I'll do it. I'll testify." Lucien's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes softened just slightly. "Good." He stood slowly, offering his hand. Celine took it and let him pull her to her feet. They stood there in the dim bedroom, two people who'd survived hell in different ways, bound together by something neither of them fully understood. "Thank you," Celine said quietly. "For what?" "For not letting me give up." Lucien didn't answer, because he knew that if she'd truly wanted to quit, nothing he said would have stopped her. The strength was always hers. He'd just reminded her it was there. 3 days before the trial, everything went to hell. Marcus burst into the safe house at 6 a.m. with news that made Lucien's blood run cold. Adrian's out. Lucien looked up from his coffee. What? Appeals court overturned the bail revocation, said the evidence for the restraining order violation wasn't strong enough. He posted bail again 2 hours ago. Electronic monitors back on, but he's out. Celine, standing in the kitchen doorway, went completely white. How is that possible? She whispered. His lawyer filed an emergency appeal, Marcus said. Argued that the phone call couldn't be definitively traced to Adrian, said it could have been anyone using his name. That's insane, Lucien said. It's also legal. Judge agreed. Adrian walks until trial. Celine's legs gave out. Lucien caught her before she hit the floor, lowering her carefully onto the couch. Breathe, he said. Just breathe. But Celine couldn't breathe. Her chest was tight, her vision blurring, panic crashing over her in waves. Adrian was out. 3 days before trial. Free to move. Free to plan. Free to... We're moving her, Lucien said to Marcus. Right now. Different location. Somewhere Adrian can't find. Already arranged, Marcus said. I've got a place upstate, 2 hours away. Off the grid. No records. Good. Pack her things. We leave in 10 minutes. But before anyone could move, Lucien's phone rang. Victoria. Turn on the news, she said without preamble. Lucien grabbed the remote and switched on the television. A reporter stood outside the courthouse, microphone in hand, looking directly at the camera. Just confirmed that Adrian Cross has filed a countersuit against his accuser, Celine Mercer, claiming defamation, emotional distress, and malicious prosecution. Mr. Cross's attorney released a statement saying that Ms. Mercer, with the financial backing of billionaire Lucien Vale, has orchestrated a campaign to destroy Mr. Cross's reputation and livelihood. The countersuit seeks $10 million in damages. Celine stared at the screen, unable to process what she was hearing. He's suing me? It's a standard intimidation tactic, Victoria's voice came through the phone. He's trying to scare you into dropping the charges. Is it working? Celine's voice was hollow. That depends. Are you dropping the charges? Celine looked at Lucien. He shook his head once. Firm. Final. No? Celine said. I'm not. Good. Then ignore the countersuit. It's noise. Focus on trial. Victoria hung up. The news continued, showing old photographs of Celine and Adrian together, smiling, normal, like any other couple. We obtained these photos from Mr. Cross's attorney, the reporter said. They paint a picture of a happy relationship, contradicting Ms. Mercer's allegations of abuse. Celine felt sick. Those photos were from the early days, before everything turned violent, before fear replaced affection. But to anyone watching, they looked like proof that she was lying. Turn it off, Lucien said quietly. Marcus switched off the television. Silence filled the apartment. Then Celine stood slowly, her expression shifting from fear to something harder. I want to see him, she said. Everyone turned. What? Lucien asked. I want to see Adrian, before the trial, face to face. Absolutely not. Why not? Because it's dangerous. Because he'll use it against you. Because you think I can't handle it, Celine finished. But I can. I need to. Celine, I've been running from him for 6 months, hiding, letting other people fight my battles. But if I'm going to walk into that courtroom and testify, I need to prove to myself that I'm not afraid of him anymore. You should be afraid of him, Marcus said. He's dangerous. I know, but I'm done letting that fear control me. Lucien studied her face, saw the determination there, the cold resolve. No, he said firmly. It's too risky. Then make it not risky. You have guards. You have resources. Set it up somewhere safe, somewhere controlled. But I need this. Why? Because right now, Adrian thinks he's won. He thinks filing a countersuit and getting out on bail means he's broken me. I want him to see that he hasn't. I want him to look me in the eye and know that I'm going to destroy him. Lucien and Marcus exchanged a look. It's a bad idea, Marcus said. I know, Lucien agreed. So we're doing it. Lucien turned back to Celine. If we do this, and I mean if, it happens on my terms. My location, my security. And if at any point I think you're in danger, we're done. Understood? Celine nodded. Understood? Yes. Lucien pulled out his phone and made a call. Victoria, I need you to set up a meeting. Adrian Cross and Celine Mercer. Mediation attempt before trial. Both lawyers present neutral location. Victoria's voice crackled through the speaker. Are you insane? Probably. Can you do it? Why would Adrian agree to this? Because he thinks he's going to intimidate her into dropping the charges. Tell his lawyer it's a final chance at settlement. He'll take it. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. This is a terrible idea. I know. Set it up anyway. When? Tomorrow. Before he has time to think about it. Fine. But if this backfires, it's on you. It won't backfire. Victoria hung up. Lucien looked at Celine. You sure about this? No, but I'm doing it anyway. The meeting was set for 2 p.m. the next day at a conference room in a downtown law office. Neutral territory, both lawyers present. Security at every entrance. Lucien arrived early with Celine, Marcus, and 2 additional guards who swept the building twice before allowing them inside. The conference room was sterile. White walls, glass table, uncomfortable chairs designed to make people want to leave quickly. Victoria was already there, setting up files and documents. He's not here yet, she said. Good, Lucien replied. Gives us time. He turned to Celine. Last chance to back out. Celine shook her head. I'm not backing out. If at any point you want to leave, I know. I'll tell you. They sat down at the table. Lucien beside Celine. Victoria across from them. Marcus near the door. At 2:05, the conference room door opened. Adrian Cross walked in. He looked different than the last time Celine had seen him. Thinner. Harder. Eyes that used to hold charm now held only cold calculation. His lawyer followed, the same sharp-eyed man from the hearing. Adrian's eyes locked on Celine instantly. She forced herself to hold his gaze. Don't look away. Don't flinch. Don't give him anything. Adrian smiled. It was the smile she remembered from late nights when he'd corner her in the kitchen, blocking the exit, asking where she thought she'd go if she tried to leave. Celine, he said pleasantly, you look good. Pregnancy suits you. Victoria cut in immediately. Mr. Cross, this is a mediation session. Please sit down and let's discuss settlement terms. Adrian sat slowly, never taking his eyes off Celine. Settlement. Right. That's what we're calling it now? What would you call it? Victoria asked. A waste of time. Celine knows she's lying. I know she's lying. Everyone in this room knows she's lying. My client has multiple witnesses, hospital records, and your client, Adrian interrupted, has a rich boyfriend who's paying for all of this. Take away the money, take away the lawyers, and what's left? A vindictive woman who got pregnant and decided to destroy me because I didn't want to play house. Celine's hands clenched beneath the table. Lucien's hand covered hers. Steady. Anchoring. That's not what happened, Celine said quietly. Adrian leaned forward. No? Then tell me, Celine, tell everyone here what really happened. You hurt me. For 2 years, you hurt me. I loved you. You terrorized me. I protected you. You broke my ribs. You fell down the stairs. After you pushed me, Adrian's mask slipped for just a second. Fury flashed across his face before he controlled it. Prove it. I will. In court. With your purchase testimony? With your coach statements? With witnesses your boyfriend probably paid off? Adrian shook his head. Nobody's going to believe you. And when this is over, when I win, I'm going to take everything from you, your credibility, your reputation, your daughter. Celine's blood ran cold. You're not touching my daughter. Our daughter. Biologically, legally mine. And when the court sees what kind of mother you are, unstable, manipulative, willing to lie to destroy the father of her child, they're going to give me custody. Lucien stood so fast his chair flew backward. We're done here. Sit down, Adrian said calmly. We're just getting started. No, we're done. And you're about to learn what happens when you threaten the wrong people. Adrian smiled wider. What are you going to do, Lucien? Hit me. That would be perfect. Assault. In front of witnesses, in front of my lawyer. Please, give me the excuse. Lucien's hands were fists at his sides. Marcus moved closer, ready to intervene. But Celine stood slowly, pulling Lucien back with one hand. She walked around the table until she was standing directly in front of Adrian. He looked up at her, still smiling. You think you've won, Celine said quietly. You think filing a countersuit and getting out on bail means you've broken me. But you're wrong. Am I? Yes, because I know something you don't. What's that? Celine leaned down, bringing her face close to his. I'm not afraid of you anymore. For the first time, Adrian's smile faltered. I was afraid for 2 years, Celine continued. Afraid you'd hurt me. Afraid you'd kill me. Afraid nobody would believe me. But I'm done being afraid. And in 3 days, I'm going to walk into that courtroom and tell everyone exactly what you are. And what am I? A coward who only feels powerful when he's hurting women. Adrian's expression went completely cold. You're going to regret this, he said quietly. No, Celine said. You are. She turned and walked toward the door. Lucien and Marcus followed. Behind them, Adrian's voice rang out. I'll see you in court, Celine. She didn't look back. Well, in the car, Celine's hands finally started shaking. She'd held it together in the conference room, held it together walking out, held it together through the elevator ride and the lobby and the walk to the car. But now, sitting in the back seat with Lucien beside her, the adrenaline drained away and left only terror in its wake. I threatened him, she whispered. You told him the truth. No, I threatened him. And now he's going to come after me harder. Let him try. Lucien, you don't understand. Adrian doesn't bluff. When he makes a threat, he follows through. Always. So do I. Celine looked at him, really looked, and saw something in his expression that she'd been ignoring for weeks. Lucien wasn't just protecting her anymore. He was preparing for war. What are you planning? She asked quietly. Whatever it takes. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. The car pulled away from the law office, carrying them back toward the safe house. And Celine realized with cold, absolute clarity that the trial wasn't going to end this. One way or another, someone was going to break. And she wasn't sure anymore if it would be Adrian or Lucien or her. Bummed. That night at 11:43 p.m., Marcus's phone rang. He answered, listened for 10 seconds, then walked into the living room where Lucien was reviewing trial documents. We have a problem. Lucien looked up. Dennis Rourke, the corrections officer who gave Adrian the phone, just turned up dead. Apparent suicide. Gunshot to the head. Lucien went very still. Suicide. That's what the preliminary report says. You believe that? No. Neither do I. Marcus sat down slowly. Someone's cleaning up loose ends. Adrian's brother. Maybe. Or someone else working for Adrian. Either way, Rourke knew too much. Now he's gone. Lucien's expression was absolutely empty. What else? Phone records show Rourke made 3 calls to an unknown number in the last week. Burner phone. Untraceable. Last call was 6 hours before he died. So someone ordered the hit. Or warned him to run and he panicked instead. Lucien stood slowly, walking to the window. Outside, the city glittered like broken glass beneath a black sky. Adrian's escalating, Marcus said quietly. First the phone call, then the countersuit, then this meeting today. Now Rourke. He's building toward something. I know. What do you want to do? Lucien was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was cold and final. I want to end this, permanently. How? By making sure that no matter what happens at trial, Adrian Cross never walks free. Lucien, I'm not letting him hurt her again. I don't care what it costs. I don't care what I have to do. He's done. Marcus stood slowly. Be careful. Men like Adrian, they're dangerous when they're cornered. Good, Lucien said quietly. So am I. Mafia. 2 days before the trial, Celine went into labor. It started at 4 a.m. with a dull ache in her lower back that she tried to ignore. By 6 a.m., the contractions were 10 minutes apart. By 8 a.m., they were 5 minutes apart. Marcus drove while Lucien sat beside Celine in the back seat, holding her hand through every contraction that tore through her body like knives. Breathe, he said. Just breathe. I'm trying, Celine gasped. I know. You're doing great. Another contraction hit. Celine screamed. The hospital emergency entrance loomed ahead, white and sterile and somehow terrifying. Doctors and nurses swarmed immediately, checking vitals, asking questions, moving Celine onto a gurney. Sir, you'll have to wait. I'm not waiting, Lucien said flatly. Family only in the delivery room. I'm family. The nurse looked at Celine. He stays, Celine gasped. They wheeled her into the delivery room while Lucien walked beside the gurney, still holding her hand. Inside, harsh fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Machines beeped. Medical staff moved with practiced efficiency. "We're seeing some complications," a doctor said, studying the monitors. "Baby's heart rate is elevated. Blood pressure's too high. We need to induce immediately." "Do it," Celine said. The next 4 hours were agony, contractions that felt like her body was tearing itself apart, doctors shouting instructions, nurses checking vitals, pain that went beyond anything Celine had ever imagined. And through it all, Lucian stayed. He didn't let go of her hand, didn't flinch when she screamed, didn't look away when blood and exhaustion turned everything chaotic. At 12:17 p.m., the doctor said, "One more push." Celine bore down with everything she had left, and then a cry. Tiny, fragile, alive. "It's a girl," the doctor said, holding up a small, wriggling infant covered in blood and vernix. Tears streamed down Celine's face as they placed the baby on her chest. "Hi," she whispered. "Hi, baby. I'm your mom." The infant stared up at her with dark, unfocused eyes, and Celine felt something shift inside her, something permanent and absolute. She would die before she let anyone hurt this child. Across the room, Lucian stood near the window, watching them both. His expression was unreadable, but something in his eyes had changed too. This wasn't just about Celine anymore. It was about the tiny, vulnerable life she'd just brought into a world that was still hunting her. And Lucian knew, deep in his bones knew, that the trial was no longer enough. Adrian Cross had to be destroyed. Completely. Irrevocably. Forever. Whatever it took. The baby slept in Celine's arms while machines beeped softly around them in the hospital recovery room. Vivienne. That's what Celine named her. Vivienne Mercer. No father's name. No claim from the man who'd spent 2 years trying to destroy her mother. Just Vivienne. Small and perfect, and completely unaware that her mother had been in labor while a predator waited somewhere in the city, planning his next move. Lucien stood near the window, phone pressed to his ear, speaking in low tones to Marcus about security protocols and exit strategies. The hospital had been locked down immediately after Vivienne's birth, guards at every entrance, no visitors without clearance, cameras monitoring every hallway. But Celine knew it wasn't enough. Adrian was out there, and the trial started in 2 days. A nurse entered quietly, checking Celine's vitals and offering a tired smile. "You did beautifully. Rest now. You've earned it." Rest. The word felt foreign. Celine hadn't truly rested in 6 months. Maybe longer, maybe years. After the nurse left, Lucian finally hung up and turned toward the bed. "Marcus is arranging transport," he said. "We're not taking you back to the safe house. Too predictable. There's a private facility upstate, medical staff, security, everything you'll need to recover." "What about the trial?" "Victoria's filing for a continuance, medical emergency. Judge will grant it." "No." Lucian's expression shifted. "What?" "No continuance. We go to trial as scheduled." "Celine, you just gave birth. You need to recover. I need to end this." She looked down at Vivienne sleeping peacefully against her chest. "I won't bring my daughter into a world where Adrian Cross is still a threat. I want him in prison before she's old enough to remember any of this." "You're in no condition to testify." "Then I'll testify sitting down. I'll testify from a wheelchair if I have to. But I'm not delaying." Lucian studied her face for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone and called Victoria. "Cancel the continuance," he said. "We're going to trial." Victoria's voice crackled through the speaker, sharp with concern. "Is she insane?" "Probably, but it's her choice." "Lucien, she's physically and emotionally compromised. Adrian's lawyer will use that against her." "Let him try," Celine said loud enough for Victoria to hear. "I'm done hiding. I'm done waiting. I want this over." Victoria was quiet for several seconds. "Okay, then we prepare. I'll come to the hospital tonight. We have 48 hours to make sure you're ready." After she hung up, Lucian sat on the edge of the hospital bed, careful not to disturb Vivienne. "You don't have to do this," he said quietly. "Yes, I do." "Why? Why push yourself like this?" Celine looked at him, exhausted and raw and utterly certain. "Because if I wait, if I give myself time to think about how scared I am, I'll lose my nerve. But right now, holding my daughter, knowing what's at stake, I've never been more sure of anything in my life." Lucian reached out and gently touched Vivienne's tiny hand. Her fingers curled around his reflexively. "She's beautiful," he said. "She's everything." They sat in silence while machines hummed and the hospital moved around them, nurses making rounds, patients calling for help, life continuing despite everything. Finally, Lucian spoke. Whatever happens at trial, you and Vivian are protected. I've made arrangements, trust funds, legal guardianship provisions. If something goes wrong, nothing's going to go wrong. But if it does, it's Lucian. Celine put her hand over his. Nothing's going to go wrong. We're going to win. And then we're going to build a life where Vivian never has to know what fear like this feels like. Lucien nodded slowly. But his expression remained guarded, calculating, because he knew what Celine didn't. Adrian Cross wasn't going to let this trial happen. One way or another, he was going to make a move, and Lucien was going to be ready. Now, that night, while Celine slept, Lucien met Marcus in the hospital parking garage. Adrian's been quiet, Marcus said. Too quiet. He's planning something. Agreed. Electronic monitor shows him at his brother's apartment in Queens. Hasn't left in 36 hours. You believe that? No, monitor can be tampered with. We've seen it before. Lucien stared out at the dark city beyond the garage. What do we know about the brother? Thomas Cross, 42. Works construction. No criminal record. Posted Adrian's bail both times. So he's loyal. Or coerced. Hard to tell. I want eyes on him, 24/7. I want to know everyone he talks to, everywhere he goes, everything he does. Already on it, Lucien turned to Marcus. If Adrian makes a move, any move, I want to know immediately. And if he comes here to the hospital? Lucien's expression went completely cold. Then we end it. Marcus nodded once. Understood. They stood in the concrete darkness, two men who'd seen enough violence to know that sometimes the only way to stop a monster was to become something worse. One more thing, Lucien said. I need you to find someone for me. Who? Someone who specializes in making people disappear. Not killed, just gone. New identity, new life, somewhere Adrian Cross will never find them. Marcus raised an eyebrow. For Celine, for all three of them. If the trial goes wrong, if Adrian walks, I want a backup plan that gets them out of the country within hours. That's expensive and risky. I don't care what it costs. You really care about her? It wasn't a question. Lucien didn't answer, because the truth was more complicated than caring. Celine represented something he thought he'd lost in Blackwater Row, a connection to the person he used to be before violence and money transformed him into something unrecognizable. She reminded him that beneath the empire and the power and the cold calculation, he was still the scared kid who needed someone to walk him home. And he would burn the world down before he let anyone hurt her again. But the next day, Victoria arrived at the hospital with files, documents, and a grim determination that filled the recovery room like smoke. Celine sat propped up in bed, Vivian sleeping in a bassinet beside her, while Victoria laid out the trial strategy with surgical precision. The prosecution will call you first, Victoria said. You'll walk the jury through your relationship with Adrian. The early days. When it turned violent, every incident, every hospital visit, every time you tried to leave. How long will I be on the stand? Hours. Maybe longer. Adrian's lawyer will cross-examine you ruthlessly. He'll try to discredit you, make you look like a liar, a gold digger, someone who seduced a billionaire and is using him to destroy an innocent man. I can handle it? Can you? Because the moment you show weakness, the moment you hesitate or contradict yourself, he'll tear you apart. Celine looked at Vivian sleeping peacefully. I can handle it. Victoria studied her for a long moment. Then she nodded. Okay, let's go over the timeline again. Start from the beginning. They worked for 6 hours, going over dates, incidents, details that Celine had tried to forget but were now burned into her memory like scars. The first time Adrian hit her, February 14th, Valentine's Day, because she'd talked to a male coworker at a party. The time he broke her ribs, June 7th, when she'd suggested couples therapy. The time he locked her in the bathroom, August 23rd, after she'd tried to visit her friend without asking permission first. On and on. A catalog of cruelty that made Victoria's professional mask crack slightly. Jesus, she muttered, writing notes. How did you survive this? I don't know, Celine said quietly. Some days I didn't think I would. Victoria looked up. But you did. And tomorrow you're going to make sure everyone knows what he is. The trial began at 9 a.m. on a gray December morning. Celine arrived at the courthouse in a wheelchair, doctor's orders, though she hated it, with Lucien beside her and Marcus coordinating security. Reporters swarmed, cameras flashed, questions shouted from every direction. Ms. Mercer, how do you respond to allegations that you're fabricating these charges? Mr. Vale, are you paying for Miss Mercer's legal defense? Is it true you just had Mr. Cross's baby? Celine kept her eyes forward, refusing to engage. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was suffocating. Adrian sat at the defense table wearing a suit that made him look respectable, harmless, like someone's colleague or neighbor. His lawyer sat beside him, already scanning the room for weaknesses. Celine's wheelchair was positioned near the prosecution table. Victoria sat on her right. Lucien sat directly behind her in the gallery. The jury filed in, 12 strangers who would decide whether Celine's nightmare ended or continued. The judge entered, an older woman with steel gray hair and an expression that gave nothing away. All rise for the Honorable Judge Patricia Huang. Everyone stood, except Celine, who remained seated in the wheelchair. Adrian's eyes locked on her immediately. He smiled, small, private. A smile meant only for her, the same smile he used to give her right before he hurt her. Celine forced herself to hold his gaze. Don't look away. Don't flinch. Don't give him anything. Please be seated, Judge Huang said. We're here today for the trial of the people versus Adrian Cross. Multiple charges including assault, domestic violence, stalking, and harassment. Opening statements will begin now. The prosecutor, a sharp woman in her 50s named Ellen Marsh, stood and addressed the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, over the next several days, you're going to hear a story about a woman named Celine Mercer who fell in love with the wrong man, a man who seemed charming, protective, safe, a man who transformed into a monster the moment she became vulnerable. Ellen walked slowly in front of the jury box. You'll hear testimony about broken ribs, bruises, threats, terror that lasted 2 years. You'll hear from Celine herself, from doctors who treated her injuries, from other women Adrian Cross victimized the same way. And when you've heard everything, I'm going to ask you to do one simple thing. Believe her. Believe the evidence. And hold Adrian Cross accountable for every single thing he did. Ellen sat down. Adrian's lawyer stood immediately. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Robert Chen, and I'm here to tell you a very different story. A story about a vindictive woman who got pregnant, decided she wanted a wealthier partner, and orchestrated an elaborate campaign to destroy the father of her child. He gestured towards Celine. Ms. Mercer is currently living in a luxury apartment owned by billionaire Lucien Vale. Mr. Vale is paying for her legal representation, providing her with financial support, essentially controlling her entire life. And you're going to ask yourselves, is this testimony genuine or is it purchased? Chen walked closer to the jury. The prosecution will show you photos of bruises, hospital records, but they won't show you the full context. They won't tell you that Ms. Mercer has a history of exaggerating injuries, of seeking attention, of manipulating men for financial gain. When you see the evidence, all of it, you'll realize that Adrian Cross is the real victim here. He sat down. Celine's hands were shaking beneath the table. Victoria leaned over and whispered, "Breathe. He's doing what we expected. Stay calm." The judge looked at Ellen. "Call your first witness." The people called Celine Mercer to the stand. Everything went silent. Celine stood slowly, refusing the wheelchair, and walked to the witness stand on trembling legs. The bailiff swore her in. She sat down, facing the courtroom, and saw Adrian watching her with cold, focused intensity. Ellen approached gently. "Miss Mercer, can you tell the jury how you met Adrian Cross?" Celine took a breath, and then she told them everything. Was? The testimony lasted 4 hours. Celine walked the jury through every moment, every bruise, every threat, every time she tried to leave and Adrian dragged her back. Her voice broke multiple times. Tears streamed down her face. But she didn't stop. She showed them photographs of injuries, medical records, text messages where Adrian apologized and promised to change. She told them about the night she escaped, the terror, the stolen money hidden in a tampon box, the 3-state drive while pregnant and alone. Ellen guided her carefully, methodically, building a case that was impossible to ignore. When Ellen finally said, "No further questions," Celine was exhausted, hollowed out, barely holding herself together. Then Robert Chen stood for cross-examination. "Ms. Mercer, you testified that Mr. Cross broke your ribs in June. Is that correct?" "Yes." "And you went to the hospital?" "Yes." "But you didn't tell the doctors Mr. Cross hurt you, did you?" I was afraid. So you lied to them. I told them I fell, which was a lie. Yes. So you've lied before. Under circumstances where telling the truth would have helped you. Why should this jury believe you're telling the truth now? Victoria objected immediately. Argumentative. Sustained, Judge Huang said. But the damage was done. Chen continued. You're currently living in an apartment owned by Lucian Vale, is that correct? Yes. He's paying for your legal representation? Yes. Providing you with financial support? Yes. In fact, without Mr. Vale's money and resources, you wouldn't be able to bring these charges at all, would you? I could file charges without him, but you chose not to. You chose to wait until you had a wealthy benefactor, someone who could bankroll this entire case. That's not... Yes or no, Ms. Mercer? Did you bring these charges before you met Mr. Vale? Celine's jaw tightened. No. Thank you. No further questions. Celine stepped down from the witness stand, feeling like she'd been torn apart. Victoria squeezed her hand as she sat down. You did great. But Celine didn't feel great. She felt exposed, questioned, like every word she'd said had been twisted into something ugly. The trial continued for 3 more days. Ellen called other witnesses, doctors who'd treated Celine's injuries, Rachel Donovan, and 2 other women who testified about Adrian's pattern of abuse, experts on domestic violence who explained why victims often delay reporting. Adrian's lawyer cross-examined each one ruthlessly, planting seeds of doubt, suggesting alternative explanations, painting Adrian as a misunderstood man caught in a web of false accusations. On the 4th day, Adrian took the stand. He was calm, collected, almost charming. He denied everything. The broken ribs? Celine fell down the stairs. The bruises? She bruised easily. The threats? Misunderstandings taken out of context. He painted himself as a devoted partner who tried to help Celine through a difficult pregnancy, only to be abandoned and now falsely accused. I loved her, Adrian said, his voice breaking convincingly. I still love her, and I love our daughter. All I want is the chance to be a father, but Ms. Mercer, influenced by Mr. Vale, has decided to destroy me instead. Celine watched from the gallery, feeling sick. The jury was buying it. She could see it in their faces. The doubt, the sympathy. Adrian was winning. Closing arguments happened on a Friday afternoon. Ellen gave a passionate speech about believing survivors, holding abusers accountable, and sending a message that violence against women wouldn't be tolerated. Robert Chen countered with a speech about presumption of innocence, the dangers of false accusations, and protecting men from vengeful exes. Then the jury deliberated. 2 hours passed. Then 4. Then 6. Celine sat in a private room near the courtroom, Vivian asleep in her arms, while Lucien paced and Victoria checked her phone compulsively. The longer they deliberate, the worse it is for us, Victoria said quietly. Why? Celine asked. Because it means they're split, arguing. If the evidence was overwhelming, they'd convict quickly. So we might lose. We might. Celine looked down at Vivian, feeling something cold and final settle in her chest. If Adrian walked free, she would run. Tonight, disappear so completely that not even Lucien could find her. Whatever it took to keep Vivian safe. At 8:47 p.m., the jury sent word they'd reached a verdict. Everyone filed back into the courtroom. Celine sat at the prosecution table, heart pounding so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. The jury foreman stood. On the charge of assault in the 2nd degree, how do you find? Guilty? Celine's breath caught. On the charge of stalking in the 1st degree? Guilty. Tears streamed down her face. On the charge of domestic violence? Guilty. Adrian's face went white. His lawyer immediately stood. Your Honor, we request bail pending sentencing. Denied, Judge Huang said coldly. Mr. Cross will be remanded into custody immediately. Guards moved toward Adrian. He stood slowly, looking directly at Celine across the courtroom. This isn't over, he said quietly. Then louder. This isn't over. You hear me, Celine? This isn't... The guards grabbed him, forcing him out of the courtroom while he screamed threats. The doors closed. Silence. Celine collapsed forward, sobbing into her hands. Victoria hugged her. You did it. You actually did it. Behind them, Lucien stood perfectly still, watching the doors where Adrian had disappeared. It should have felt like victory. Instead, It felt like the beginning of something else. Sentencing happened 2 weeks later. Adrian Cross received 7 years in prison with no possibility of parole for 5. 7 years. It should have felt like enough. It didn't. But Celine took it anyway, because it meant Vivian would grow up without Adrian in her life, at least for a while. After the sentencing, Lucien drove Celine and Vivian back to the estate. Not the safe house, not a temporary apartment, home. Celine had protested at first, uncomfortable with the charity, the dependence. The way Lucien's generosity felt like another kind of cage. But Lucien had been firm. You need time to recover, to figure out what's next. Stay here, as long as you need. I can't, you can, and you will. So she stayed. The months that followed were strange, not dramatic, not filled with grand gestures or cinematic moments, just quiet. Celine recovered slowly. Her body healed. Her mind took longer. She had nightmares, panic attacks when doors slammed too loudly, days where she couldn't get out of bed. But gradually, the good days started outnumbering the bad. She began taking online business courses, something Victoria suggested after learning Celine had been brilliant with numbers before Adrian destroyed her confidence. Lucien paid for the classes without asking, the same way he paid for everything, quietly, without making it transactional, just removing obstacles and stepping back. Vivian grew, crawled, smiled, laughed. Every milestone felt like proof that Celine had survived for a reason. Lucien visited often, not every day, not intrusively, but consistently. Sunday dinners became tradition. He'd arrive at noon with groceries and cook, while Celine worked on assignments, and Vivian created chaos in the kitchen, crawling over his expensive shoes and grabbing at pot handles. They didn't talk about Adrian, didn't talk about the trial, didn't talk about what they were becoming to each other. Instead, they talked about everything else. Blackwater Row memories. Books Celine was reading, business ideas she was developing. Vivian's latest developmental achievements. Small, ordinary things that felt impossibly precious after years of violence. One Sunday evening, after dinner, while Vivian napped on the couch, Celine finally asked the question she'd been avoiding. "Why are you doing this?" Lucien looked up from the dishes he was washing. "Doing what?" "All of this. The house, the classes, the dinners. You don't owe me anything." "I know. So why?" Lucien dried his hands slowly, thinking. "Because 17 years ago, you saved my life. And I've spent every year since wondering what happened to you. If you were okay, if you were happy, now I know. And I can't just walk away. That's not a reason. That's guilt. Maybe. But it's also more than that." "What else is it?" Lucien looked at her directly. "It's caring about someone, wanting them to be safe, wanting them to have the life they deserve. Is that so hard to believe?" Celine's eyes filled with tears. "Yes. Because everyone who's ever said they cared about me ended up hurting me. I'm not everyone." "I know, that's what scares me." Lucien crossed the kitchen slowly, sitting beside her at the table. "I'm not asking you for anything, Celine. I'm not expecting gratitude. I'm not trying to control you. I just want to help, that's all." "For how long?" "As long as you need." "And then what?" "Then you decide what happens next. You build the life you want. And I'll be here if you need me. Or I won't. Whatever you choose." Celine looked at him for a long time. Then she reached out and took his hand. "Thank you," she whispered. Lucien squeezed gently. "You're welcome." 2 years passed. Celine graduated with honors in business management and started working as a financial consultant for small businesses. Vivienne turned 2, then 3, growing into a fierce, sharp-eyed little girl who inherited her mother's stubbornness and something else, something fearless that reminded Lucien of the girl who jumped fences to save him. Celine moved out of the estate eventually, into a small apartment in White Plains with her own furniture, her own rules, her own life. But Sunday dinners continued. Every week, Lucien showed up with groceries and stories and infinite patience while Vivian climbed all over him, staining $1,000 shirts with tomato sauce and sticky fingers. He never complained, never acted like it was charity, just showed up, consistently, reliably, the way nobody ever had for Celine before. One evening, after Vivian was asleep, Celine and Lucien sat on her small apartment balcony drinking wine and watching the city lights flicker in the distance. "Do you ever regret it?" Celine asked. "Regret what?" Getting involved. All of this. You could have just let me work at the estate and minded your own business. Lucian was quiet for a moment. No, I don't regret it. Even though it was complicated, expensive, dangerous. Especially because of that. Celine looked at him. Why? Because you reminded me who I used to be. Before the money. Before the power. You reminded me that I'm still the kid from Blackwater Row who needed someone to walk him home. And now? Now I'm the one walking you home, returning the favor. Celine smiled. You already did that. Adrian's in prison. I'm safe. You don't have to keep doing this. I know. So why do you? I do. Lucian set down his wine glass and looked at her directly. Because somewhere along the way, this stopped being about paying back a childhood debt and started being about something else. What? Caring about you. Actually caring. Not because I owe you. Not because you need help. Just because you're you. Celine's breath caught. I'm not asking you for anything, Lucian continued quietly. I know you're not ready. Maybe you'll never be ready, but I wanted you to know. Celine was quiet for a long time. Then she reached out and took his hand. I'm not ready, she said softly. Not yet, but maybe someday. That's enough. They sat in comfortable silence while the city breathed around them and inside the apartment. Vivian slept peacefully, safe and loved, and completely unaware that her existence had saved two broken people by giving them something worth protecting. Shot. 5 years after the trial, Celine received a letter. It came from Attica Correctional Facility. Adrian's handwriting on the envelope. She stared at it for a full minute, heart pounding, before finally opening it. Inside, a single page. Celine, I've had a lot of time to think. 5 years in here changes a person. I'm not the man I was. Therapy, classes, facing what I did. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve that. But I want you to know I understand now what I took from you. The fear, the pain, the years you'll never get back. I'm sorry. For everything. I hope you and Vivian are happy. You deserve that much. Adrian Celine read it 3 times. Then she walked to the kitchen, held the letter over the sink, and lit it on fire with a match. She watched it burn until nothing remained but ash. Then she washed the ash down the drain and walked into the living room where 5-year-old Vivian was building a tower out of blocks, while Lucy Yen watched, offering engineering advice she completely ignored. Everything okay? Lucien asked, seeing her expression. Yeah, Celine said. Everything's okay. And she meant it. Because Adrian's apology didn't matter. His remorse didn't change what he'd done. He was part of her past now. A scar that would always be there but no longer defined her. Celine had built something else. A career she loved. A daughter who knew nothing but safety and laughter. And someone who showed up every Sunday without fail, making pancakes and terrible jokes and proving through actions instead of words that not all men were monsters. Some were just people trying their best. 7 years after the trial, Adrian Cross was released from prison. Celine learned about it from Victoria, who called immediately. He's out. Served his full sentence. Mandatory supervised release for 3 years, but he's free. Celine's first instinct was panic. Her second instinct was to run. Her third instinct was to call Lucien. He arrived within the hour. What do you need? He asked. I don't know. I thought I'd be ready for this. I thought 7 years would be enough time, but I'm terrified. That's normal. Is it? Because I feel like I should be over this by now. Trauma doesn't work on a timeline. Vivian ran into the room, 7 years old now, wearing mismatched socks and a princess dress. Lucien, can we go to the park? Lucien looked at Celine. She nodded. Yeah, let's go to the park. They spent the afternoon watching Vivian play, climbing, sliding, laughing, and Celine realized something. Adrian might be out of prison, but he had no power here, no claim on her life, no access to her daughter, no ability to hurt them. The restraining order was permanent. Vivian didn't even know his name, and Celine had built a life he couldn't touch. That night, after Vivian was asleep, Celine sat on her balcony with Lucien. I'm okay, she said quietly. You sure? Yeah, I am. Adrian's out, and it changes nothing. He's just some guy now, not my nightmare, just someone I used to know. Lucien smiled. That's growth. Therapy helps. Also time. Also you showing up every week proving that not everyone's going to hurt me. I told you, I'm not going anywhere. Celine looked at him, really looked. 7 years of Sunday dinners, 7 years of consistency, 7 years of proving through actions that he meant what he said. I think I'm ready now, she said quietly. Ready for what? To stop being afraid. To trust someone, to let someone in. Lucien's expression shifted. Celine, I know it's been 7 years. I know you've been patient. And I don't know if this is what you still want. But I'm ready to try. If you are. Lucien reached out and took her hand. I've been ready since Blackwater Row, he said quietly. Celine laughed, tears streaming down her face. That's a long time to wait. You were worth it. They sat together while the city lights flickered, and somewhere inside the apartment, Vivian slept peacefully, safe and loved, and completely unaware that her mother had just taken the bravest step of her life. Not running, not hiding, but choosing to stay, choosing to trust, choosing to believe that maybe, just maybe, she deserved something good. 10 years after the trial, Celine stood in the garden of Lucien's estate, their estate now, watching Vivian race through the grass with two other children, a boy and a girl, twins, 3 years old, hers and Lucien's. They'd gotten married quietly 5 years earlier, small ceremony, close friends. Victoria officiated. Vivian had been the flower girl, scattering petals everywhere and stealing the show completely. Life wasn't perfect. Celine still had nightmares sometimes, still flinched when doors slammed, still carried scars that would never fully heal. But she'd learned that survival wasn't about erasing the past. It was about building something new on top of it. She'd built a successful consulting firm. Lucien had stepped back from some of his more dangerous business dealings, focusing instead on philanthropy and legitimate investments. Together, they'd created a foundation that helped domestic violence survivors, providing legal aid, housing assistance, therapy, and job training. Every year, the foundation helped hundreds of women escape situations like the one Celine had survived. And every year, she met with them, looked them in the eye, and told them the same thing Victoria once told her. You're not alone anymore. Lucien walked up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. What are you thinking about? He asked. How far we've come. From Blackwater Row? From everything. They stood together watching their children play while the sun set over the estate gardens and the world moved forward without asking permission. Do you ever think about him? Lucien asked quietly. Adrian? Sometimes, but not the way I used to. Now he's just a chapter. A bad one, but not the whole story. What's the whole story? Celine turned in his arms, looking up at him. Survival. Growth. Learning that the people who hurt you don't get to define you forever. And that sometimes, if you're very lucky, the person who saves you when you're a kid shows up again when you're an adult and saves you all over again. Lucien smiled. I didn't save you. You saved yourself. Maybe, but you gave me a safe place to do it. That's all I ever wanted to give you. Vivian ran over, grass-stained and breathless. Mom, the twins are trying to eat dirt again, Celine laughed. Then stop them. I tried. They don't listen. Lucien and Celine walked over together, redirecting toddlers away from questionable dietary choices, while Vivian narrated the entire crisis with dramatic flair. And in that moment, chaotic and ordinary and beautifully mundane, Celine realized something. She'd won. Not in a courtroom. Not through revenge or violence or anything dramatic, but through the simple act of surviving, of healing, of choosing to build a life worth living instead of staying trapped in the one someone else tried to destroy. Adrian Cross had taken 2 years from her, but she'd taken everything back, and more. She had a career she loved, children who knew nothing but safety, a partner who showed up every single day proving that love didn't have to hurt. She had a future, and nothing, not the past, not the nightmares, not the scars, could take that away from her anymore. That night, after the children were asleep, Celine and Lucien sat in the library where they'd spent so many nights talking, healing, slowly learning to trust again. Do you ever regret it? Lucien asked. Taking me in that night? 17 years ago? Celine smiled. Jumping that fence? Getting that scar? She touched the faded mark above her eyebrow. Never. Best decision I ever made. Even though it led to all of this? Especially because it led to all of this. They sat in comfortable silence while the fire crackled and the house settled around them. Two survivors. Two people who'd seen the worst the world had to offer and somehow found each other on the other side. Not perfect, not undamaged, but alive. And building something beautiful out of the ruins of everything that tried to destroy them. Outside, snow began to fall, soft, silent, covering the city in white. And for the first time in Celine Mercer's life, winter didn't feel like something to survive. It felt like a new beginning,